Chapter 1376. When Fengdu Necropolis was almost destroyed, all the black fog in the world gathered in the sky above Fengdu Necropolis, turning into black Sanskrit characters that attacked the Dizang of Goguryeo from all directions. Infinite Kasaya. The Dizang of Goguryeo roared, and the infinite Kasaya flew up, overflowing with golden light as it circled around the Dizang of Goguryeo. Boom! 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 The black Sanskrit characters were destroyed, but they immediately reignited and surrounded the infinite Kasaya. In addition, many black Sanskrit characters surrounded the Dizang of Goguryeo. That voice seemed to have a chance to breathe, and it said loudly, "Dizang of Goguryeo, are you afraid that I will tell the truth? Haven't you always boasted of being bright and upright? Actually, you are no different from others. Let me tell you, you have all been deceived by him. He also has a dark side, and he is not as great and bright as he looks on the surface." The Dizang of Goguryeo tried to stop it, but it was too late. The voice rumbled and clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. The Dizang of Goguryeo has a dark side? Everyone was shocked by this news. Whether it was the believers or Li Xiaotian, they all thought that the Dizang of Goguryeo was a selfless person who was wholeheartedly for the public good. Although Li Xiaotian questioned his philosophy, she did not question his character. However, this voice said that he had a dark side. She was very clear about what this meant, and she could not help but look at the Dizang of Goguryeo curiously. The Dizang of Goguryeo did not refute, and it seemed that he had tacitly agreed to this point, especially when the expression between his brows made his thoughts clear. This voice did not seem to be lying. Immediately, Li Xiaotian could not help but be curious about the so-called dark side of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Nonsense, slander. More and more complaints rang out from the crowd. The believers did not believe his words at all. This was simply nonsense. Dizang of Goguryeo was a supreme existence in their hearts. How could he have a dark side? Ha ha ha, a bunch of ignorant fools. The truth is right in front of you. Do you still not want to admit it? That voice shouted. The believer still shook his head in disbelief. Instead, he asked Dizang of Goguryeo for confirmation. Dizang of Goguryeo, quickly refute his nonsense. Dizang of Goguryeo did not refute. Instead, he fell into silence. Li Xiaotian frowned. He seemed to have thought of something, but he couldn't grasp it. The meaning of the voice was too confusing. The voice paused for a moment, then said word by word, "I am his dark side, right in front of you. How do you think Dizang of Goguryeo will quibble?" Whoosh! The cold wind howled, but no one made a sound. The silence was frightening. Everyone had an incredulous look on their faces. Even though Li Xiaotian had already thought of this, when he heard this, his eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Indeed, no one would have thought of this. The so-called dark side of the Dizang of Goguryeo was actually this voice. Dizang of Goguryeo did not refute. Moreover, the other party vowed solemnly, so he was definitely not lying. No wonder this voice was the same as the Dizang of Goguryeo. He was the dark side of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Of course, it was the same voice. However, this dark side did not have a body. Was it just a black fog? Why was this so? Li Xiaotian tilted his head, puzzled. He stared at the Dizang of Goguryeo, as if he wanted to get an answer from his face. Dizang of Goguryeo sighed in his heart. He was extremely depressed. Ever since he had an epiphany, he had never felt such a deep sense of powerlessness and frustration. The content of this voice was the biggest taboo in his heart. He was very unwilling to mention it or even recall it. But after all, this was something that had happened to him before. He simply could not stay out of it. "I always thought that you had become a thing of the past. I never thought that you would come back." After a long time, Dizang of Goguryeo finally said blankly. "Actually, this is all thanks to you." The dark side said meaningfully. Dizang of Goguryeo asked in a deep voice, "What do you mean?" You suppressed me in the sea of bitterness for who knows how many years, so that I will never see the light of day. What kind of torture is this? It's a pity that you were too confident in yourself and did not believe that I could escape from the sea of bitterness. Dizang of Goguryeo snorted coldly, am I wrong? After so many years, have you escaped from the sea of bitterness? Of course you are not wrong. Although I am very dissatisfied with you, the two of us have one thing in common, and that is, we are very confident in ourselves. This is still worthy of praise. Tang Zheng. Dizang of Goguryeo was shocked, and the figure of Tang Zheng appeared in his mind. So his name is Tang Zheng. The dark side said with interest. When Li Xiaotian heard the two words Tang Zheng, her eyes lit up. After so long, she had not heard any news about Tang Zheng. Now that it was said by the dark side, it immediately attracted her attention. Tang Zheng is trapped in the sea of bitterness. What's wrong with that? Dizang of Goguryeo asked in confusion. Ha ha ha, of course it's no problem for me. On the contrary, I welcome him very much. He gave me a huge surprise. Back then, when he first came to the Sea of Bitterness, I saw him. It's just that I was suppressed by your great magical power and there was no way to communicate with Tang Zheng. I tried countless methods, but they all ended in vain. The dark side was disappointed and seemed to feel that it was a pity. If Tang Zheng heard this, he would be very surprised. Because, he did not find a second person in the Sea of Bitterness. But he had always been monitored by the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo still had a lot of things that he could not figure out. He asked suspiciously, Tang Zheng's cultivation is not high. How could he let you out? Ha ha ha, your eyes have always been very accurate, but this time you are wrong. Tang Zheng is far more complicated and powerful than you think. Although I saw everything he did, I didn't completely see through him. The dark side said regretfully. I was wrong. How is that possible? He is clearly only at the 9th level of the divine transformation realm. Unless he comprehended the Ksitigarbha Sutra, there is no way for him to leave the Sea of Bitterness, let alone let you out. Dizang of Goguryeo said in disbelief. Now that I am in front of you, do you still doubt it? Isn't this convincing enough? The dark side asked, I know you must want to know how I got out. Dizang of Goguryeo did not say anything, but his expression had already revealed his inner thoughts. He wanted to know the answer too much. Tang Zheng does not know of my existence. He accidentally absorbed all the water in the Sea of Bitterness. If there is no water in the Sea of Bitterness, is it still the Sea of Bitterness? Naturally, it will collapse and your magical power will be ineffective. Therefore, I can easily escape from the Sea of Suffering and return to this familiar world, the dark side said in a single breath, without stopping. When Dizang of Goguryeo heard this, he almost staggered and fell to the ground. He said in surprise, What? You said he absorbed all the water in the Sea of Bitterness. Where did he absorb it to? A black hole. I don't know the specific situation, but that black hole gave me a very unusual feeling. It seemed to be able to devour everything. He moved the Sea of Bitterness away so easily. The dark side did not hide anything and said truthfully. He also expressed the doubts in his heart. This was also one of the reasons why he could not see through Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's magical power was very strange. For a moment, he could not figure it out. Especially the sky-swallowing technique, he was even more confused. Black hole sky-swallowing technique. Dizang of Goguryeo knew more than the dark side. When he heard the black hole, he immediately knew the whole story. Back then, in the 18 levels of hell, Tang Zheng's sky-swallowing technique merged with the King of Hell's Yama seal, which greatly increased the power of the sky-swallowing technique. Dizang of Goguryeo witnessed this scene with his own eyes. Of course, he was not unfamiliar with the sky-swallowing technique. However, he never thought that the sky-swallowing technique could completely absorb the water in the Sea of Bitterness. As for how much water there was in the Sea of Bitterness, even Dizang of Goguryeo did not know. Back then, he mediated the vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts in the 18 levels of hell. The 18 levels of hell were the closest place to the Earth's core. One time, by chance, he discovered that there was an ocean in the depths of the ghost realm. In the end, he named this ocean the Sea of Bitterness and blessed it with a supreme magical power. As he became more familiar with the Sea of Bitterness, he gradually understood the role of the Sea of Bitterness. In the end, he decided to take a gamble and use the Sea of Bitterness to solve the problem that had been troubling him. Everyone's personality had many sides. Whether it was an extremely evil person or a very kind person, they had to have a kind and dark side. These two sides coexisted, and it was impossible to only have one side. Dizang of Goguryeo was the same. His kind and dark side coexisted, and they were both very powerful. When he cultivated the Ksitigarbha Sutra, he gradually had an epiphany and made a great wish. If hell was not empty, he vowed not to become a Buddha. Obviously, his kind side had gained the upper hand, and his dark side was deliberately suppressed. However, as his skills became more profound, the dark side was also restless, and had the tendency to fight back and suppress the kind side. Dizang of Goguryeo knew what this meant. Once the dark side gained the upper hand, he would become an unpardonable murderer. The ghost realm would probably be plunged into misery and suffering in his hands. Why would he need to mediate the vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts? He himself was the biggest unstable factor. He had always wanted to drive the dark side out of his body, so that he would become perfect and only have the kind side left. Dizang of Goguryeo was really a harsh perfectionist. He did not allow a little bit of the dark side to remain. He had tried many methods, but they all ended in failure. When the Sea of Bitterness appeared, he saw the dawn of hope. Heaven did not disappoint those who worked hard. Through various experiments and with the help of the supreme magical power, he finally stripped the dark side out of his body and suppressed it at the bottom of the Sea of Bitterness. As long as the Sea of Bitterness was not destroyed and the seawater did not dry up, the dark side would be suppressed in the Sea of Bitterness forever. Dizang of Goguryeo could always only have the kind side, which could be called perfect. Big-breasted beauty Li Shueting sexy see-through private photos, highly recommended. Please follow the official WeChat account to see the beauty online. Home of Beauty Search Mindgia 123 press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1377. Dizang of Goguryeo thought that his plan was flawless because with his strength, there was no way for him to dry up the Sea of Bitterness. He subconsciously thought that no one in the world of spirits and souls could do this. However, he never thought that Tang Zheng, an outsider, would actually succeed in shifting the sea by relying on the long-lost sky-swallowing technique. The Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's expression kept changing. It was extremely unsightly. He was so shocked that he couldn't say anything for a long time. In the end, he sighed and said, "Tang Zheng, you didn't turn back, but used the sky-swallowing technique to destroy the Sea of Bitterness. Do you know what this means?" When the dark side heard this, he said sarcastically, "You want me to be suppressed, but unfortunately, the heavens don't follow your wishes. I was suppressed by you back then, but now that I've returned, don't even think about suppressing me." Hee, Tang Zheng has already escaped. The next time I see him, I really have to thank him properly. The dark side changed the topic and said with a smile. Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes flashed with golden light and said, "Thank him? You have the nerve to say that. I'm afraid you want to kill him, right?" The dark side had seen how powerful Tang Zheng was. Although Tang Zheng had saved the dark side, he would not remember this kindness. Since he was the dark side, he had gathered all the insidiousness and cunning. How could he let go of such an unstable factor like Tang Zheng? The dark side did not care that Dizang of Goguryeo had seen through his thoughts. He laughed wildly, "Ha, I have to say, you know me best. However, at the same time, I know you best because we are one." "Who is one with you?" "You are willing to degrade yourself, so how can I be with you?" Dizang of Goguryeo said firmly. "You are still so self-righteous and proud. I will let you know now that you are very wrong." The dark side said sternly. He was ready to launch another fierce attack, but a voice was heard in a hurry. "You saw Tang Zheng in the Sea of Bitterness. Do you mean that he has escaped?" Li Xiaotian disregarded her own safety and soared into the air. She looked at the black fog face to face and asked. The black fog paused for a moment and seemed to be examining her. He asked curiously, "Who are you? How is Tang Zheng?" Li Xiaotian asked impatiently. The dark side was stunned and immediately understood. "Ha ha ha, you are that kid's lover, that's why you care about his safety. Since you are his lover, why are you staying by Xidagarba's side? Isn't this betraying that brat?" Li Xiaotian's expression, she said leisurely, "I didn't." TSK, interesting, really interesting. I almost forgot, that brat is a living person, and you are a ghost. Two people from two different worlds, separated by yin and yang, but became lovers. Hee, this ghost world is getting more and more interesting. Enough. Dizang of Goguryeo finally couldn't stand the dark side's one-man show and shouted. On the contrary, the dark side was even happier. The angrier Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva was, the more he felt the thrill of revenge. He said proudly, "I have held back for countless years and only managed to say a few words. How could it be enough? Little girl, do you want to know about your lover?" Li Xiaotian nodded. "Then sell your soul to me and let me order you around for eternity. I will naturally tell you." The dark side instigated. Sell her soul to him. Li Xiaotian was shocked. Her heart was deeply shocked. These words were too shocking. The other party actually wanted her soul and let her be a slave for eternity. In your dreams. Li Xiaotian scolded without hesitation. Li Xiaotian was a smart person. She naturally understood that this was a deal with the devil and would be beyond redemption. Although she was worried about Tang Zheng's safety, she also believed in his strength. Since he had escaped, he would definitely find her again. If she made a deal with the devil, when she saw him again, what face would she have left? How could she talk about staying together? Dizang of Goguryeo laughed. "You think you can bewitch everyone in the world. This time it has finally failed." The dark side was stunned for a moment, as if he was examining Li Xiaotian. Suddenly, she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. An extremely cold feeling enveloped her body. What a strange girl. Dizang of Goguryeo, don't boast too early. I have no way to bewitch him, but do you have a way to convert him? I think there is a world of difference between her and your other believers. The dark side retorted. His eyes were like torches. He could directly see the difference between Li Xiaotian and the others. Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva's cheeks were flushed red. The dark side pointed directly at his pain. He had once thought that he could convert Li Xiaotian, especially during normal times. Imperceptibly influencing him was a very easy thing to do. But Li Xiaotian was like a stubborn rock. He was incomparably hard and pervasive. Dizang of Goguryeo was at his wit's end. Li Xiaotian's expression did not change. She asked, "Where is Tang Zheng now?" The dark side proudly said, "I told you before. If you want to know about him, you have to sell your soul to me. In your dreams." Li Xiaotian refused again without hesitation. "Don't worry. Wait until I deal with the Dizang of Goguryeo, then we'll talk in detail. I'm too interested in that kid." The dark side simply gave up on Li Xiaotian and continued to target the Dizang of Goguryeo. Li Xiaotian was no match for the dark side. There was no way to force the other party to tell the truth. He had to give up. Boom! A black Sanskrit hit the Dizang of Goguryeo. The strong shock wave directly sent Li Xiaotian flying like a kite with a broken string. The two sides fought fiercely again. It was unknown who shouted, "Help the Dizang of Goguryeo." All the believers sat cross-legged in the ruins and chanted the Kshitigarbha Sutra. The golden light of the infinite Kasaya surged and quickly grew. In an instant, it covered the sky and enveloped the black fog. In the next second, the infinite Kasaya blocked all sight, enveloping the Dizang of Goguryeo and the dark side together. The believers kept chanting the Kshitigarbha Sutra, adding energy and power to the infinite Kasaya. Bang, bang, bang. It was as if something was constantly attacking the infinite Kasaya. Large bumps appeared on the infinite Kasaya, and these bumps grew more and more. The believers chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra even faster. Unfortunately, they did not learn the true essence of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. This little help was like a drop in the bucket. The sound of the collision was like rumbling thunder, echoing in the sky above Fengdu City. It made Li Xiaotian's heart tremble, and his expression became solemn. She was very conflicted. The dark side was definitely not a good person. In comparison, the Dizang of Goguryeo was better. At least he would not kill the innocent. But if the dark side lost, how would she find Tang Zheng? She held her head in distress and fell into silence. Bang, bang, bang. When the sky above Fengdu City was completely drowned out by these collision sounds, the infinite Kasaya was covered with bumps. The believers' mouths were dry, and they seemed to have exhausted all their strength. They hung their heads dejectedly and could no longer chant the Ksitigarbha Sutra in its entirety. The golden light on the infinite Kasaya became dimmer and dimmer, like a lamp that was about to be extinguished. If the golden light disappeared, did that mean that the Dizang of Goguryeo had lost? Li Xiaotian couldn't help but clench his fists. The believers were in despair. They had already used all their skills, but the enemy was too strong. Suddenly, the collision sounds disappeared. Everything was silent, and this piece of land had sunk into a terrifying deathly silence. Everyone's breathing seemed to have stopped. They could only stare at the sky with their eyes wide open. Li Xiaotian's eyes gradually narrowed into slits, revealing a shocked expression. He pointed at the infinite Kasaya and exclaimed, "Look, the infinite Kasaya is turning black." Yes, the golden light had completely dimmed. The golden color on the infinite Kasaya was slowly fading away, eroded by the black color. The infinite Kasaya had turned black. What kind of scandal was that? No one didn't know what that meant. It meant that the dark side had gained the upper hand, and the east wind had overwhelmed the west wind. The good side of the Dizang of Goguryeo would be defeated, and from then on, the Dizang of Goguryeo would turn black. At that time, the world of spirits and souls would undergo earth-shaking changes, and the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. However, no one could stop all this, and it was really frustrating. Everyone's expression became more and more ugly, and their eyes were almost filled with despair. Because, they watched as more and more black color appeared on the infinite Kasaya, almost occupying the entire Kasaya. One side was golden, and the other was black. The golden light was dim, and the black light was like ink, constantly expanding. Li Xiaotian was very anxious. He leaped into the air and shouted, "Kill, help the Dizang of Goguryeo." He rushed toward the infinite Kasaya. Whoosh, 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 a few masters in the crowd who still had some strength flew up and attacked the infinite Kasaya. They all took out their magic weapons and attacked the infinite Kasaya. Whoosh! The black light broke away from the Kasaya and flew out. It was like a bolt of black lightning that appeared out of nowhere, hitting the enemies one after another. In a few screams, everyone fell down. In front of the dark side, these believers who were already at the end of their rope were no match for him at all. Li Xiaotian was no exception. When he fell to the ground, his body was almost falling apart, and his soul was scattered. However, he still stood up stubbornly. When he looked up again, the infinite Kasaya had completely turned black. Ha ha ha! An arrogant and hideous laughter came from the infinite Kasaya, and it was chilling. The believers were completely desperate. This laughter was obviously not the good side of the Dizang of Goguryeo, but the damned dark side. The infinite Kasaya had turned black. Did that mean that the Dizang of Goguryeo had also turned black? The Dizang of Goguryeo was the strongest person in the world of spirits and souls. Once he turned black, what would happen to the world of spirits and souls? Suffering and suffering. That was for sure. Perhaps, the situation would be worse. No one dared to continue thinking about it. The Kasaya became smaller little by little, but the black light became more and more intense. The ink-like infinite Kasaya seemed to be able to absorb all the light around it, making it difficult to escape. Suddenly, the black light flashed, and the figure of the Dizang of Goguryeo appeared. The infinite Kasaya was draped over his body, and the black light expanded. The appearance of the Dizang of Goguryeo did not change. It seemed that he was still the original Dizang of Goguryeo. However, when everyone looked at him, they felt that his temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. There was no dazzling golden light on his body. Instead, a mysterious black fog rose and lingered around him. The black light in his eyes flashed, and he looked down at the people on the ground. He said loudly, "From now on, I am your new Dizang of Goguryeo. All the previous rules are abolished. I will lead you to a new world." Chapter 1378. Li Xiaotian felt that he had lost his mind and soul. It was as if he was about to be bewitched by the voice of the darkened Dizang of Goguryeo. The eyes of those with weak willpower had already changed. They couldn't help but kneel and kowtow to the Dizang of Goguryeo. When the Dizang of Goguryeo saw this, he laughed out loud. The hearts of the other followers were like dead ashes as they trembled with fear. The original Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had been defeated, so they were unwilling to submit to the current Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. However, they were not willing to become the slaves of the Dizang of Goguryeo. They turned around and fled toward the teleportation formation. Fengdu's city was almost destroyed, but the teleportation formation was supported by the divine ability and was not damaged. The only way to leave Fengdu's city was through the teleportation formation. Fengdu's city was surrounded by water and was surrounded by the Styx River that could not be crossed. Any attempt to fly away from Fengdu's city was suicide. They would fall into the Styx River and drown at the bottom of the river. Their souls would be scattered. The Styx River had a natural devouring effect on souls. The Dizang of Goguryeo revealed a mocking smile and said, "You want to escape just like that? Aren't you thinking too simply?" He grabbed at the void with his big hand. A few figures suddenly stopped and were in a deadlock in midair. They all revealed looks of despair. "Ah!" They screamed and stopped abruptly. Bang, bang, bang. They exploded and turned into wisps of yin qi that flew toward the Dizang of Goguryeo's palm. They rolled in his palm but could not escape his 5 fingers. "I told you to submit to me, but you want to escape. You can't blame me for this," the Dizang of Goguryeo muttered to himself. However, this sentence that seemed to be understated was filled with endless killing intent. Everyone stopped and did not dare to take half a step forward. Although the teleportation formation was not far away, they were not completely confident that they could escape the Dizang of Goguryeo's attack. They didn't want to follow in his footsteps. Li Xiaotian abruptly retracted the leg that she had taken a step forward. She looked at Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in midair with fear. Dizang of Goguryeo gently landed on the ground. Those who submitted to him immediately lowered their heads into the dust and prostrated themselves on the ground, not daring to act rashly. Whoosh! Suddenly, a cold light flew out from the crowd and shot towards Dizang of Goguryeo. This was a Dharma treasure, and its power was not small. The Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was unmoved. He gently raised 2 fingers. Crack! His fingers gently clamped down on the oncoming magical weapon. Bang! With a loud explosion, the magic treasure turned into fine powder. Puff! Someone spat out a mouthful of blood. He was firmly bound by a force in the crowd and slowly flew up. No one dared to look, afraid that they would follow in his footsteps. That person kept struggling, but it was to no avail. His face was extremely pale, and with the last of his strength, he hysterically roared, "You are not the Dizang of Goguryeo. He will not kill the innocent. You devil, I will die with you." Dizang of Goguryeo laughed dryly and said, "Who said that I am not the Dizang of Goguryeo? I am one with him. You have only seen his hypocritical side before. This is his true side. It seems that you cannot accept it. Our Dizang of Goguryeo will come back. You will not be arrogant for long." The other person unwillingly retorted. Dizang of Goguryu's eyes slightly narrowed, revealing a thin line, but a cold light suddenly appeared. He said in a deep voice, "He will come back." "Humph, dream on. I will definitely not give him this chance." Hearing this, Li Xiaotian's heart moved. The other person's words revealed a lot of information. At least the Dizang of Goguryu's good side did not disappear. It was just suppressed by him. This was the same as the Dizang of Goguryu's good side suppressing the dark side. If the good side found an opportunity, it could naturally turn defeat into victory and take back control. This was a very slim hope. Li Xiaotian did not think that the dark side would be so careless and give him a chance to turn defeat into victory. "You will never see that day, and I will not give you a chance to live. Go to hell." Dizang of Goguryo suddenly roared, his large hand grabbing towards the void. Bang! With another explosion, the other person turned into wisps of yin qi, his soul scattered. The others were silent, no longer daring to resist. Many of them were believers of the good side of Ksitigarbha, but under the bewitchment of the dark side, their loyalty to the good side gradually collapsed. The Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva proudly walked through the middle of them. They automatically split into two rows and made way for him. Dizang of Goguryo strolled in front of Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian stood in place, not moving. She knew that any resistance would be futile, so why should she resist? But she still stubbornly raised her head. The others lowered their heads, but she was different. Even if her soul scattered, she would raise her head and die with dignity. Dizang of Goguryo stopped in front of her, sizing her up with interest. "You really are very charming. No wonder that brat was so infatuated with you that he didn't hesitate to risk his life to revive you," Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said in amazement. He merged into Dizang of Goguryo's body, and naturally, he also obtained the memories stored in his brain. He knew what kind of person Tang Zheng was, and had a close relationship with Dizang of Goguryo. He also passed on the core of his own unique skill, the Ksitigarbha Sutra, to Tang Zheng. This was simply inconceivable. So, he wanted to see Tang Zheng even more. However, after Tang Zheng escaped from the sea of suffering, he still did not know where he was, so it was not easy for Dizang of Goguryo to see him. But with Li Xiaotian, all of this was very easy. As long as Tang Zheng heard about Li Xiaotian's news, he could not wait to see him, and would not delay for even a minute. "I won't resurrect him. I will let him leave the ghost realm and never come back." Li Xiaotian made up her mind. Dizang of Goguryo laughed disapprovingly. "Ha, is that so? Then you are underestimating Tang Zheng's feelings for you too much. I dare say that for you, he is willing to do anything, even give up his life." Li Xiaotian's face suddenly changed. As the person involved, she had to admit that Dizang of Goguryo's words were not false. In fact, Tang Zheng had always been a stubborn person. Once he made a decision or accepted it, even 9 bulls could not pull him back. He promised to resurrect Li Xiaotian, so he would try his best to do it. He would never give up halfway. Looking at Li Xiaotian's changing face, Dizang of Goguryo said triumphantly, "It seems that I was right. He is really a sentimental person, admirable. However, it is often difficult for this kind of sentimental person to achieve great things, because they will be tied down by love." "Nonsense, his achievements will definitely surpass yours," Li Xiaotian retorted. "Surpass me? Ha ha ha, the world is so big, no one will surpass me in the future." Dizang of Goguryo was full of confidence and said with a snort. "Who said that he has to wait until the future? His current achievements have already surpassed yours," Li Xiaotian said earth-shattering. Dizang of Goguryo was stunned for a moment, and then immediately laughed wildly, as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. "Already surpassed me? It seems that you are scared silly, to actually say this kind of nonsense." Dizang of Goguryo shook his head, feeling very disappointed with Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian, however, insisted on his opinion and said, "I am not speaking nonsense, it is 100% the truth. Do you know his achievements? He has saved the human world from destruction several times. He is the savior, not only now, but also in the future. He is the guardian of the human world. For your own selfish interests, you willfully killed the innocent. How can your so-called achievements be compared to his? Li Xiaotian's questioning was powerful, making people feel deep respect for him. Dizang of Goguryeo was suddenly stunned. These words made him speechless. This was the inside story that he did not understand. However, he immediately came back to his senses and said disdainfully, "What is this? The savior of the human world, with this little ability, he is the savior of the human world. It seems that the human world is really decadent. That kind side is really pedantic, to actually let it be, letting the human world be promoted to a big world and the ghost world be demoted to a small world. This kind of thing that harms oneself to help others, only he can do it. Since I am one with him, then I will make up for this mistake." Dizang of Goguryeo talked non-stop. Obviously he did not agree with the original Dizang of Goguryeo's actions, especially regarding the small and big world, which made him furious, secretly cursing him for being pedantic and hopeless. "You think that he has saved the human world from danger. This achievement is very great, right? Then I will destroy this greatness of his. I will destroy the human world, and let you all understand that he is not great at all, but a sinner of the human world. If it were not for him, I would not have made this decision." Dizang of Goguryeo added. "What, you want to destroy the human world?" Li Xiaotian turned pale with fright. "Of course, he is a person of the human world, for the welfare of the human world, and I am the master of the ghost world. Of course, I will also consider the development of the ghost world. I will correct the previous wrong path, and lead the ghost world on the right path. You are now a member of the ghost world, you should be happy and proud." Dizang of Goguryeo proudly raised his head, and said proudly. Li Xiaotian's face was ashen, and said, "I will not be happy or proud, I will only be disgusted. Your actions will definitely cause pain to both worlds, and intensify hatred. You are destroying both worlds. Where is the slightest bit of greatness? That is because you have never seen yourself as a member of the ghost world. The ghost world will be grateful to me. Since you don't think of yourself as a member of the ghost world, then I will not be polite to you. Come here." Dizang of Goguryeo stretched out his hand, and a terrifying force wrapped around Li Xiaotian. She exclaimed, rose into the air, and flew to Dizang of Goguryeo's side. Kitagarbha Bodhisattva looked at Li Xiaotian, who was right in front of him, and said with a smile, "I will use you as bait to catch that brat. I know you are the best bait. Dream on, he will not be fooled." Li Xiaotian kept struggling and shouting, and hurriedly denied. But she knew in her heart that if Tang Zheng knew about her situation, he would definitely be fooled, and if he cared about her, Tang Zheng might not be as calm as usual, and would definitely be in danger. She wanted to send a message to Tang Zheng, telling him not to care about her, and return to the human world. The ghost world was no longer peaceful. But she did not have the chance. Dizang of Goguryeo laughed, and flew into the teleportation array. "Now, I will let you see how I subdue the ghost world," unlike the original Dizang of Goguryeo who was helpless. Chapter 1379. Tang Zheng watched as the mountains shook and the sea of bitterness was annihilated. The light was so dazzling that he couldn't open his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, the sea of bitterness was no longer in front of him. He was standing on a bare ground. He looked around and couldn't see the end of it. The dark sky was above his head, and a chilly wind blew. He suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and easily soared into the sky like a rocket taking off into the sky. He stopped in mid-air and looked down at the earth below. The earth seemed to have been hit by an earthquake as cracks appeared one after another. The scars that looked like centipedes were scattered all over the ground, making for an extremely ugly sight. However, flowers bloomed in his heart. He cheered excitedly and somersaulted in midair. "Ha ha ha, I've finally escaped from the sea of bitterness and returned to the ghost realm." He was pleasantly surprised and took a deep breath. The cold aura in the air made his heart surge more than the power of the stars. His mind was immediately immersed in the heavenly realm, ready to express his condolences to the greatest contributor. In the heavenly realm, the Milky Way floated in midair. The water seemed to have no end as it flowed continuously from the waterfall to the earth. The river water gathered together to form a huge ocean. It was like a world of water. Everything was made of water. This scene full of vitality is really refreshing. No one would have thought that this river water is actually the water of the Sea of Bitterness. Tang Zheng was amazed and praised. His mind returned from the heavenly realm. He looked up at the sky and swore silently, "Li Xiaotian, wait for me. I'm coming to save you." Where did the Dizang of Goguryeo lock her up? Fengdu City. Tang Zheng kept analyzing and finally confirmed that the possibility of Fengdu City was higher. After all, Fengdu City was the core of the ghost realm. Although Fengdu City was the territory of the King of Hell, the Dizang of Goguryeo would definitely choose this core city of the ghost realm to fulfill his ambitions. He didn't know that the 9 great kings of Hell had been dealt with by the Dizang of Goguryeo. Otherwise, he would be more worried about Li Xiaotian's safety. Whoosh! He landed on the ground, then revved up the engine and ran wildly. In the ghost realm, there was no way to cheer for the somersault cloud. If there was a battle soul sword, then one could only rely on one's legs. However, his legs were worlds apart from an ordinary person's. With a light step, he could cross several meters. They moved as fast as lightning, the great earth's shaking already stopped. Everything along the way was bleak, but they didn't encounter a single creature. After an unknown period of time, a towering mountain appeared in the distance. Its outline was clear, like a crouching beast. His pupils suddenly shrank as he felt that this mountain seemed to be somewhat familiar. He quickly approached. The mountain became more and more majestic, and he became insignificant, like an insignificant ant. However, his gaze was firmly attracted by something else. A large river surrounded the mountains. Styx! He cried out in alarm as he finally remembered where he was. Wasn't this the necropolis that he had been to before? However, he had never seen the outline of Fengdu Necropolis before because he had always used the transmission array to get there. I actually came to Fengdu Necropolis by chance. He was pleasantly surprised. The ghost realm was vast, and it was definitely lucky for him to find a city in such a short time. However, he immediately became worried. This was because he had to stop here. There was no way to cross the Styx and fly to Fengdu Necropolis. He deeply experienced the power of the Styx. If he hadn't relied on the protection of the 4 symbols venerable, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the Styx at all. Now that the 4 symbols venerable wasn't by his side, how could he cross this natural moat? He walked along the river bank for a while and found a stone, ready to throw it to ask for directions. Whoosh! The stone rubbed against the air, making a sharp sound as it flew above the Styx. Splash! However, as soon as the stone flew above the river, its forward momentum came to an abrupt halt as a huge force attracted it. In the next second, it rapidly fell into the river, splashing a few water droplets. Tang Zheng's head trembled. If such a light stone couldn't fly across the Styx, wouldn't he immediately fall to the bottom of the river if he went up? He rolled his eyes and looked up at Fengdu Necropolis, which was close at hand, but he couldn't go up. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a series of shocking sounds came from Fengdu Necropolis. It seemed to be the sound of fighting. He raised his sword-like eyebrows and muttered, "Is there a great battle in Fengdu Necropolis? Who in the ghost realm can be a match for the Dizang of Goguryeo? Could it be that the 10 kings of hell are making things difficult for the Dizang of Goguryeo?" He knew very well that the Dizang of Goguryeo would encounter obstacles when he carried out his ideas, especially the 10 kings of hell, who would definitely resist fiercely. Could it be that there was a conflict between the 2 sides? He couldn't wait to rush up and see what was going on. However, the Styx cut off his thoughts. He walked along the river bank and circled Fengdu Necropolis a few times, but he still couldn't think of a solution. Fengdu Necropolis had quietened down. Could it be that the battle had ended? Who won, who lost? Was Li Xiaotian injured in it? He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, walking around in circles. Let's fight! Now that I've reached the second stage of the Mahayana realm, I don't believe that I can't offset the attraction of the Styx River. Moreover, I'm not a stone. In the end, he had no other choice but to take a risk. He took a deep breath and urged his power. All the cells in his body became active, and his genuine chi seemed to be boiling. Whoosh! He kicked his legs and soared into the air, crossing the Styx River. However, when he flew above the river, a tremor from the depths of his soul trapped him. He screamed and quickly fell down. Although he was fully prepared, the power of the Styx River still exceeded his expectations. He was falling rapidly and was about to fall into the river. At that time, his soul would be swallowed by the water of the Styx River. No, I can't die. He growled and pushed his palms forward. A huge force flew to the surface of the water, like a cannonball hitting the surface of the water, splashing up huge waves. However, the recoil force did not reduce the speed of his fall. F***ck, I've seen a ghost. This Styx River is really evil. He still did not give up and hurriedly urged the Ksitagarbha Sutra. Golden Sanskrit words blurted out and wrapped around him, stopping him from falling. This Ksitagarbha Sutra has such a magical effect. He was dumbfounded, but he immediately came back to his senses. He suppressed his ecstatic mood and quickly flew to Phungdu necropolis. Dizang of Goguryeo didn't tell me that the Ksitagarbha Sutra can restrain the attraction of the Styx River. I've been racking my brains for a long time. He complained secretly. Whoosh! He finally flew to the towering city walls of Phungdu necropolis and found that the city was in a mess. It was almost destroyed, and a group of black figures knelt on the ground in fear and trepidation. They did not dare to act rashly. He searched for a while but did not find Li Xiaotian. He did not even find a familiar face. Where was King Yama? Wasn't this his city? Where was the Dizang of Goguryeo? The power of this battle was so great that even Phungdu necropolis was almost destroyed. Who was fighting who? Where is the Dizang of Goguryeo? He did not care about hiding his figure and soared into the sky. With a bang, he landed in front of the people of the ghost realm. One by one, they raised their heads and looked at him in shock. Suddenly, someone recognized him and exclaimed, "It's him, the living person. He's the Tang Zheng that the Dizang of Goguryeo mentioned. Quickly go and report to the Dizang of Goguryeo that Tang Zheng is here." Someone cheered. When Tang Zheng heard this, he frowned. It seemed that the Dizang of Goguryeo was looking for him, but wasn't he trapped in the sea of bitterness? Why would he spend so much effort to find him? The Dizang of Goguryeo is looking for me. I don't need you to report, I'm going to find him. Tang Zheng said loudly, "Where is he?" Everyone's eyes were fixed on the teleportation array. Tang Zheng turned his head and immediately understood that the Dizang of Goguryeo had left through the teleportation array. Sigh, if I'm not a step late, I can find him directly without going through so much trouble. Tang Zheng sighed secretly and immediately asked the Dizang of Goguryeo's destination. This group of people did not know the destination of the Dizang of Goguryeo. They looked at each other and knew nothing. Tang Zheng glanced at them and knew that his question was unnecessary. He simply walked into the teleportation array. Suddenly, his heart moved and he asked, "Have you seen Li Xiaotian? She's a very beautiful girl. She looks like this." He tried his best to describe Li Xiaotian's appearance according to the impression he had in his mind. Their eyes lit up as they nodded and said, "She left with the Dizang of Goguryeo." Tang Zheng's eyes also lit up. Since Li Xiaotian had been captured by the Dizang of Goguryeo, her life was definitely not in danger for the time being. What happened here? Tang Zheng pointed at the messy Phungdu city and asked. They looked at each other and said, the Dizang of Goguryeo had a big battle with himself, which led to all of this. Tang Zheng frowned. The Dizang of Goguryeo had a big battle with himself? These guys were scared silly, right? Even their words were not normal. Tang Zheng did not ask any more. Everything would be clear when he saw the Dizang of Goguryeo. He was already familiar with the teleportation array. The teleportation array in Fengdu City could send him to many places. He thought for a while and decided to go to Songjiangwang City first. In the world of spirits and souls, he was relatively familiar with him. It was better to ask him about the situation. Perhaps he would know the whereabouts of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Whoosh! A beam of light soared into the sky, illuminating the dark sky and enveloping Tang Zheng. His eyes suddenly lit up. The beam of light was so hot that he almost could not open his eyes. In the next second, the light disappeared, and he arrived at a new place. "Who's there?" A shout rang out, like a clap of thunder exploding in his ears. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tang Zheng cried out in alarm, since when did the messengers of hell start attacking without distinguishing between right and wrong? Song Jiangwang's ability to control his subordinates was too bad. In the blink of an eye, the storm-like attacks had already arrived in front of him. He was not afraid at all. With a wave of his hand, the enemies stopped in mid-air, and the approaching treasures exploded with a rumble. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a thought in his mind, a terrifying force pushed them back again. Their speed was even faster, and they slammed into all kinds of hard objects. Chapter 1380. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, the invading enemies all retreated. Tang Zheng finally saw clearly that this was indeed Songjiangwang City. He shouted, "Call Songjiangwang here, how dare you attack me?" So what if Songjiangwang is here? The Dizang of Goguryeo has already given the order that once we see you, we must capture you. The other party said sternly. Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. The Dizang of Goguryeo had given such a fierce order to capture him. He had ulterior motives. Dizang of Goguryeo, where did our friendship go? You are so cruel, not only did you trap me, you even want to capture me. The other party prepared to swarm again, but a figure quickly flew over and shouted, "Stop!" Song Jiangwang landed beside Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked at him angrily and said, "Song Jiangwang, these are your subordinates." "Humph, they dare to attack me and even want to capture me." Song Jiangwang smiled bitterly, but it was uglier than crying. He said awkwardly, "Calm down, today is different from the past." Tang Zheng's eyebrows trembled. Just as he was about to ask why, he heard an angry shout, "Song Jiangwang, do you still dare to collude with him?" Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in disbelief, wondering if he had heard wrongly. The other party's shrimp soldiers actually dared to shout at Song Jiangwang, wasn't this going against the heavens? Song Jiangwang could only smile bitterly and quickly explained, "The ghost realm has changed, I will tell you in detail later." After pausing for a moment, he faced the others and said, "That's not right, which eye of yours saw me colluding with him? Be careful, I will sue you for slander in front of the Dizang of Goguryeo." Didn't the Dizang of Goguryeo want to see him? If you all attack together and cause him to die, which one of you can bear the responsibility? The other party looked at each other and finally didn't dare to make a ruckus. He said embarrassedly, "Dizang of Goguryeo's order is to capture him. We are just following orders." Nonsense. Haven't you heard about the relationship between Dizang of Goguryeo and Tang Zheng? With their friendship, why would they capture Tang Zheng? The Dizang of Goguryeo only wants to see him. If you guys are mistaken, then you will be the ones to suffer. Song Jiangwang's aura was very strong, causing the other party to be speechless. Song Jiangwang struck while the iron was hot and said, "I will naturally bring him to see the Dizang of Goguryeo. You guys can leave now." The other party stared at Song Jiangwang for a long time before reluctantly retreating. Tang Zheng's mind was in turmoil. Why had Song Jiangwang's prestige and status dropped so much? Had the ghost realm really changed? Song Jiangwang's situation could really be described with 6 words, miserable, 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 miserable. As if he saw the doubts in Tang Zheng's mind, Song Jiangwang smiled bitterly and said, "I know you have a lot of questions. Listen to me slowly." Song Jiangwang slowly narrated the recent happenings in the ghost realm, causing Tang Zheng's heart to tremble in fear as he continuously cried out in alarm. You are the only one left among the 10 kings of hell. Yes. If I didn't act according to the circumstances, I'm afraid that I would have been killed by the Dizang of Goguryeo and ended up like the other kings of hell. Song Jiangwang sighed. Tang Zheng was silent. He was really shocked by this news. The Dizang of Goguryeo actually changed his style and became so tough. He killed the 9 kings of hell while talking and laughing. In addition, he forcefully implemented his own ideas and tried to convert all living beings in the ghost realm. However, it caused a huge turmoil in the ghost realm. What about Li Xiaotian? After pondering for a while, Tang Zheng asked again. Song Jiangwang sighed with emotion and said, "Your girlfriend's luck is really extraordinary." The Dizang of Goguryeo kept her by his side and wanted her to witness his conversion. He even passed on the Ksitagarbha Sutra to her and treated her as his right-hand woman. Even I can't compare to her. What, right-hand woman? Tang Zheng was shocked. Why did the Dizang of Goguryeo do this? The Dizang of Goguryeo wanted to prove that her and my suspicions were wrong and deliberately left us alive. It's just that your girlfriend was treated much better than me. Song Jiangwang smiled bitterly. Suddenly, Song Jiangwang changed the topic. He lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "However, I heard that something happened in Necropolis this time. Everything changed. Fengdu City has become a ruin. I just came from there." What, so serious? Song Jiangwang was shocked. I only heard some rumors and didn't have time to verify it. Tang Zheng's curiosity was piqued and he asked, "What rumors?" The Dizang of Goguryeo seems to have changed. This change is extraordinary, but I don't know what exactly happened. Song Jiangwang said. Tang Zheng's heart moved and he said, "Those people in Fengdu City are witnesses. If I knew earlier, I would have asked them clearly." At that time, he was worried about Li Xiaotian's safety and didn't dare to delay. Otherwise, he would have asked clearly before leaving. The Dizang of Goguryeo has already passed down the order to capture you if you see you. He also told you that if you want Li Xiaotian to be safe and sound, you should obediently go see him. Song Jiangwang said with a face full of suspicion, "This is very different from the Dizang of Goguryeo's style in the past. I really don't understand." Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. The Dizang of Goguryeo actually left such fierce words. It was definitely not on a whim, but because he had an ulterior motive. The Dizang of Goguryeo definitely knew that he had escaped the sea of bitterness, so he used this method to make him fall into the trap. Without the sea of bitterness, how can he deal with me? Kill me? Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he guessed. Are you going to see the Dizang of Goguryeo? Song Jiangwang asked curiously. Of course I'm going. Tang Zheng said without hesitation. I'm afraid it's not good. You have to think twice. Song Jiangwang advised. Tang Zheng said resolutely, Li Xiaotian is in his hands. No matter how difficult it is, I have to keep the appointment. He grasped my weakness. Very smart. I feel that the Dizang of Goguryeo is strange. You better think carefully. Song Jiangwang was still very hesitant. Tang Zheng looked at him deeply and said, Don't you want to find out what happened to the Dizang of Goguryeo? The best way is to directly meet him. It's simple and direct. It's more effective than your wild guesses. Song Jiangwang hurriedly waved his hand. No, I'm not going. Right now, he was avoiding the Dizang of Goguryeo like the plague. If he could avoid appearing in front of him, he would definitely stay away. He was deeply afraid that he would attract the Dizang of Goguryeo's attention. Then, the Dizang of Goguryeo would deal with him like how he dealt with the other kings of hell. Song Jiangwang still had the thought of resisting before, but now this thought was getting weaker and weaker. He almost couldn't see any hope. Looking at Song Jiangwang's terrified expression, Tang Zheng frowned. How could Song Jiangwang change so much in such a short time? He was completely different from the Song Jiangwang of the 18 levels of hell. Could it be that the power of the environment was so great that it could change a person so much? Are you afraid? Tang Zheng asked directly. Song Jiangwang stuttered and nodded. Yes, I'm really afraid. The world of spirits and souls is no longer the world of spirits and souls. The world has changed. How can I not be afraid? The Dizang of Goguryeo has countless followers. If he gives the order, his spittle can drown me. Tang Zheng stared at Song Jiangwang with a burning gaze. After confirming that he was not acting, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Now, there was only one familiar Song Jiangwang in the world of spirits and souls, and he had not been converted yet. Tang Zheng must definitely pull him along. Therefore, he grabbed Song Jiangwang without any explanation. Song Jiangwang tried to break free, and even urged his power, but found that there was no way to break free from Tang Zheng's hand. Immediately, he stared at Tang Zheng in shock and asked, your power? Tang Zheng nodded and said, I'm already in the Mahayana realm. Song Jiangwang's eyes lit up, and he said ecstatically, wow, the Mahayana realm, you actually broke through to the Mahayana realm. I'm sorry, forgive me for losing my composure. This is really shocking news. So, you can fight with the Dizang of Goguryeo? Song Jiangwang asked expectantly. Defeat the Dizang of Goguryeo and let him understand that his so-called plan to deliver all living beings from torment is impossible to achieve. Then, restore the world of spirits and souls to its former state. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, you can't wait for me to deal with the Dizang of Goguryeo, are you waiting to reap the benefits? After all, the other kings of hell are already dead, and you're the only king of hell left. Once the Dizang of Goguryeo loses power, the world of spirits and souls will be under your control. Song Jiangwang's face stiffened, and he said awkwardly, why would you think of me like that? How could I be that kind of person? Tang Zheng knew that Song Jiangwang was resourceful and was the best at using tricks. Back then, it was his words that lured the Dizang of Goguryeo to swear that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty. Thus, he forced the Dizang of Goguryeo to leave, allowing the world of spirits and souls to maintain its original state for countless years. Now, Song Jiangwang was no match for the Dizang of Goguryeo, so he might have the intention to kill with a borrowed knife. Tang Zheng was meticulous, so how could he let go of such a big loophole? Tang Zheng, you've really misunderstood me. If you defeat the Dizang of Goguryeo and restore the world of spirits and souls to its original state, I'd rather worship you as the Lord. Song Jiangwang patted his chest and said righteously, as if he really did not have any selfish motives. Tang Zheng laughed dryly and said, I'm not a member of the world of spirits and souls, so how can I become the Lord of the world of spirits and souls? Your words are equivalent to not saying anything. There's always a way to solve this. We should first solve the problem of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Song Jiangwang said hesitantly. Tang Zheng did not pursue the matter and said directly, you must come with me to see the Dizang of Goguryeo. This is not up to you. You should know where he is. Song Jiangwang understood that his arm could not win against Tang Zheng's thigh, so he could only compromise and nod helplessly. Song Jiangwang activated the teleportation array, and the teleportation array lit up. The light rushed into the sky, and the few of them were bathed in the light. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. In the next second, the light disappeared, and the two of them appeared in another city. Walala, there was a rush of footsteps, and the two of them were immediately surrounded by a dark mass of figures. Obviously, the Dizang of Goguryeo was well prepared. Once Tang Zheng appeared, he would not give him a chance to escape. Song Jiangwang looked at the dark mass of figures, and his face was pale. He muttered, this is all your fault. You dragged me along and put yourself in danger. You have to protect me later. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and took a step forward, his aura surging like a rainbow. The other side unconsciously took a step back and loudly shouted, stop. Chapter 1381. Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang were escorted by two groups of elite ghost generals who were eyeing them covetously as they walked towards a huge palace. Tang Zheng requested to see the Dizang of Goguryeo, and the group of ghost generals agreed. This was because they all knew that the Dizang of Goguryeo wanted to see Tang Zheng. Along the way, the two of them constantly sized up their surroundings and gradually discovered some changes. This city had an additional austere aura that caused people to tremble in fear. Song Jiangwang felt it the most and muttered, "Strange, this city is completely different from before." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "What do you mean?" "I'm not unfamiliar with this city. I've been here before and it was peaceful back then. But now, this city is filled with austere aura and killing intent at every step. It's completely incompatible with the Dizang of Goguryu's requirements," Song Jiangwang said in a deep voice. The Dizang of Goguryo wanted to deliver all living beings from torment. That was because he wanted a peaceful environment and definitely not this kind of environment. On this point, Song Jiangwang had the right to speak. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, "Didn't your information say that the Dizang of Goguryo underwent some changes in Fengdu City? Could it be this kind of change?" Song Jiangwang muttered to himself for a while and still shook his head. "I feel that this place is becoming more and more like the 18th layer of hell. Maybe it's just my imagination." Song Jiangwang shook his head, feeling somewhat confused. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. Apart from the austere aura, this place was indeed filled with a vicious aura that was similar to the 18th layer of hell. But didn't the Dizang of Goguryo say that he wanted to deliver all living beings from torment? Why did this place become the 18th layer of hell? What exactly happened to the Dizang of Goguryo? Unknowingly, they arrived in front of a lofty palace. Just as they stepped into the palace, an overwhelming baleful aura swept over them. It was really like the 18 levels of hell. Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang glanced at each other at the same time, their hearts raised. Song Jiangwang's face was uglier than if he were crying, as he continuously complained, "I already said that I wouldn't come, but you insisted on making me come. This time, my little life is going to end here." Tang Zheng snorted coldly and said, "The person Dizang of Goguryo wants to deal with is me, not you. What are you afraid of?" Song Jiangwang glanced at him resentfully and thought to himself, "I'm afraid of being implicated by you." However, he and Tang Zheng were in the same boat, so he didn't dare to offend Tang Zheng. When Song Jiangwang found out that Tang Zheng had reached the Mahayana realm, he placed all his hopes on Tang Zheng and naturally did not dare to offend him. Step by step, they went deeper into the palace. Whoosh! Streaks of dark blue flames rose from the palace and floated around the palace, completely illuminating everything. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he directly saw the figure of the Dizang of Goguryo. He was sitting on a huge chair, as if he had become one with it. The Dizang of Goguryo's eyes were like torches as he stared straight at Tang Zheng. It was like two bolts of lightning that directly landed on Tang Zheng's body. The invisible pressure made it hard for him to breathe. Tang Zheng stood proudly, staring at the Dizang of Goguryo with bright eyes. Song Jiangwang tilted his head to the side, as if he was afraid that the Dizang of Goguryo would discover his existence. "Ha, Tang Zheng, you're finally here." The Dizang of Goguryo's laughter sounded like a demonic sound that made one's heart sway. Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang's expressions changed at the same time as they hurriedly circulated their energy and stabilized their minds. "Dizang of Goguryo, where's my girlfriend?" Tang Zheng asked directly. "Why are you in such a hurry? This is completely different from your calmness in the Sea of Bitterness." The Dizang of Goguryo said playfully. "Sea of Bitterness?" Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. "You watched my every move in the Sea of Bitterness?" The word "watched" is too serious. "I saw your every move in the Sea of Bitterness." The Dizang of Goguryo corrected. "Then why didn't you stop me when you saw me destroy the Sea of Bitterness?" "I didn't meet your requirement to repent and be saved." Tang Zheng asked curiously. "Why should I stop you? I can't wait for you to destroy the Sea of Bitterness. Only then can I leave the Sea of Bitterness and return to this wonderful world." Ha ha ha. The Dizang of Goguryo opened his arms and laughed loudly. Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang both frowned, their eyes filled with questions. This sentence had a serious ambiguity. The Dizang of Goguryo trapped Tang Zheng in the Sea of Bitterness. Why would he want him to destroy the Sea of Bitterness? The Dizang of Goguryu's laughter came to an abrupt end. He looked at them playfully and said, I know you have a lot of questions. I will be merciful and answer them for you. After a pause, the Dizang of Goguryo said, the one standing in front of you now is not the original Dizang of Goguryo, but another Dizang of Goguryo, the real Dizang of Goguryo. The other real Dizang of Goguryo? The two people's hearts trembled. They really could not understand what this meant. The original Dizang of Goguryo is soft-hearted, overcautious, and extremely long-winded. He has a lot of ability, but he wants all living things to be equal. That's just wishful thinking. These words were earth-shattering and deeply shocked the two people's hearts. They were dumbstruck and could not help but wonder if they were hallucinating. How could these words come out of the Dizang of Goguryo's mouth? All living things being equal was wishful thinking. That was the dream that the Dizang of Goguryo had always been pursuing. How could he say that it was worthless? I have already declared that I am not the original Dizang of Goguryo, so don't look at me like that. The Dizang of Goguryo emphasized. Who the hell are you? Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. I am still the Dizang of Goguryo, just a more real Dizang of Goguryo. The Dizang of Goguryo said proudly, I am the essence of the Dizang of Goguryo. The Dizang of Goguryo looked deeply at Tang Zheng and said, Tang Zheng, I have to thank you. If it were not for you, I would not have been able to escape from the Sea of Bitterness and regain the initiative. Tang Zheng was aghast. He finally grasped the key point and asked, at that time, you were also in the Sea of Bitterness. I destroyed the Sea of Bitterness, so you escaped from the Sea of Bitterness? Ha, smart, you finally understand the key point. Then why were you trapped in the Sea of Bitterness? Of course it was because of the original pedantic Dizang of Goguryo. He thought that I was the dark side of his personality, so he suppressed me in the Sea of Bitterness, never to see the light of day. The Dizang of Goguryo said hatefully. Tang Zheng seemed to have understood something and said, you are the dark side of the Dizang of Goguryo's personality. I'm not. It's just a one-sided statement from that pedantic guy. I'm the true nature of Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva argued angrily. Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang looked at each other and said in a low voice, the two opposite sides of the Dizang of Goguryo's personality clashed, and one of them was suppressed in the Sea of Bitterness. Now that this personality has seen the light of day, it has controlled the Dizang of Goguryo. Song Jiangwang nodded his head in shock, clearly agreeing with Tang Zheng's words. No wonder the Dizang of Goguryo's temperament had changed so much. It turned out that the dark side of his personality had taken over. Then what about the original Dizang of Goguryo? What did you do to him? Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. He and I were originally one, so of course I could not kill him. If he died, then my life would also be in danger. Therefore, I only suppressed him. The Dizang of Goguryo said complacently. Where did you suppress him? The Dizang of Goguryo pointed to his chest, of course here. The good side of the Dizang of Goguryo was suppressed in his body. You want to release him, right? But have you thought about the situation after you release him? The world of spirits and souls will change greatly. You. The Dizang of Goguryo pointed at Tang Zheng, then turned his finger and pointed at Song Jiangwang, and you don't agree with his way of delivering all living beings from torment. When the time comes, I'm afraid your end will be very ugly. Am I right? Song Jiangwang's face turned pale. Of course, he understood this point. During this period of time, he was trembling with fear, deeply afraid that he would follow in the footsteps of the other kings of hell. When the Dizang of Goguryo was angered, it did not feel good. But I'm not that pedantic guy. I will give you power as long as you pledge allegiance to me. Tang Zheng, don't you want to resurrect Li Shaotian? I can satisfy you. The Dizang of Goguryo threw out another huge bait. Tang Zheng's heart trembled, and his face changed slightly. Song Jiangwang was also moved, and his eyes kept changing, as if he was weighing the pros and cons. This is your only chance. I will rule the world of spirits and souls, and you too will assist me. In the future, you will be under one person and above thousands, enjoying supreme power and glory. The Dizang of Goguryeu's voice was very bewitching. Song Jiangwang's throat moved, as if he was swallowing. Tang Zheng was also a little moved. In the world of spirits and souls, only the Dizang of Goguryeo knew how to capture Li Shaotian. In the past, the Dizang of Goguryeo would not relent no matter what. Now that there was a glimmer of hope, should he give it a try? Although this was the dark side of the Dizang of Goguryeo, what did it have to do with him? After all, this was the world of spirits and souls, not the human world. He had no responsibility. His heart swayed, and he seemed to be about to blurt out a promise. The Dizang of Goguryeo looked at the two of them confidently, and urged, if you miss this chance, it will be too late for regrets. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Song Jiangwang was moved, and asked hesitantly, what do you plan to do with the world of spirits and souls? The Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Song Jiangwang approvingly, and said, the world of spirits and souls can only have one master. Of course, that can only be me. I want to end this situation of disunity. The world of spirits and souls is united, and there is a lot to be done. I think the world of spirits and souls has been downgraded to a small world. Humph, what nonsense. A small world. When Tang Zheng heard these 3 words, it was like a wake-up call, and he immediately sobered up. He stared at the Dizang of Goguryeo, and said, the world of spirits and souls has become a small world. What do you want to do? The Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes flashed, of course, it will be promoted to a large world again. Tang Zheng's heart trembled, and he immediately had an answer. Song Jiangwang also had an answer, and a smile appeared on his face. He lightly floated in front of the Dizang of Goguryeo, and said, Dizang of Goguryeo is wise. The small world is in danger of being destroyed at any time, and this is like a sword hanging over everyone's head. The original Dizang of Goguryeo was indeed foolish, and actually took the initiative to downgrade the world of spirits and souls. Us 10 kings of hell did not agree to this, and he was the one who insisted. Obviously, Song Jiangwang had already pledged allegiance to the Dizang of Goguryeo. A cold light flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes. Song Jiangwang really could not be trusted, and his ability to take advantage of the situation was top-notch. He was still delusional to think that he would help him, what wishful thinking. The Dizang of Goguryeo nodded in satisfaction, you are a smart guy. No wonder the other kings of hell all died, and only you survived. Song Jiangwang smiled bitterly. Chapter 1382. Dizang of Goguryeo's aggressive gaze made Tang Zheng unable to delay any longer. He raised his head and looked straight at Dizang of Goguryeo. He said in a deep voice, I have a friendship with Dizang of Goguryeo, but not with you. I have a friendship with another Dizang of Goguryeo. What do you mean? Dizang of Goguryeo asked sternly. I will not submit to you. If you exist, not only will you cause chaos in the world of spirits and souls, you will also break the peace of the human world. How can I help the evildoer? Tang Zheng said firmly. You, Dizang of Goguryeo scolded, stubborn. Everyone has their own aspirations. I will not force you. Since that is the case, then you can forget about resurrecting Li Shaotian. I will let you taste the feeling of having your soul scattered. Tang Zheng sneered, is that so? Since you saw me in the sea of bitterness, how did you destroy it? Do you still have the confidence to keep me here? Dizang of Goguryeo did not care, that is because you are lucky. I heard that your divine ability is called the sky-swallowing technique. I would like to see its power. Then I will let you broaden your horizons. Tang Zheng made the first move. He pushed his hand forward, and a strong wind blew. The surrounding airflow flew towards him frantically. A huge black hole appeared between his palms, sucking in all the airflow. Even Song Jiangwang could not stand steadily and was about to fly towards the black hole. Dizang of Goguryeo stomped his foot and said in a deep voice, stop. The air seemed to have solidified, and the strong wind seemed to have calmed down. Song Jiangwang, who was about to leave the ground, froze in midair. Tang Zheng felt a strong force coming towards him like a tide. It seemed to be cancelling out the power of the sky swallowing technique. You're underestimating my swallowing sky technique. Tang Zheng growled as he channeled his energy into the black hole. The black hole suddenly doubled in size, like a bloody mouth that wanted to devour everything. The tranquil air was stirred up again. Dizang of Goguryu's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "It is indeed extraordinary. No wonder it can destroy the sea of misery." He did not dare to be careless. Although Dizang of Goguryo had a strong aura, his aura was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. In terms of cultivation, Dizang of Goguryo was definitely higher than Tang Zheng. However, Dizang of Goguryo's two personalities had just gone through a life-and-death battle and had consumed a lot of energy. Dizang of Goguryo did not return to his peak condition. Tang Zheng had just broken through not long ago. He was definitely in his peak condition. Every cell in his body was eager to fight, bursting with the genes for battle. Tang Zheng was not clear about Dizang of Goguryo's situation. He was fully alert, knowing that this was going to be a tough battle. He had already launched an attack, and there was no way back. He was like a vast river, and a majestic aura rushed towards Song Jiangwang. Dizang of Goguryo's expression was stern, and a black light appeared all over his body. Tang Zheng was surprised. He was very surprised by Dizang of Goguryo's change. In the past, his every move and style was like a Buddha's radiance that was full of brilliant power. However, at this moment, the black light gave him a feeling of coldness and ruthlessness. It was completely different from before. The dark side and the good side are indeed extraordinary. It is the same body, but there is such a huge difference in the supernatural powers used. Whoosh! A series of black Sanskrit words flew out from Dizang of Goguryo's mouth and intertwined in midair, forming a huge swastika. The swastika pressed down from the sky, and a majestic power suppressed the black hole. The black hole trembled violently. It was actually unable to suck in the swastika. It was clear how powerful it was. The Ksitigarbha Sutra is simply a waste in your hands. It has become like this. Tang Zheng reprimanded. Dizang of Goguryo laughed loudly. Who said that the Ksitigarbha Sutra can't be like this? Back then, when I comprehended the Ksitigarbha Sutra, its original appearance was like this. It was just that that guy later removed this side. Tang Zheng was shocked. So there was such an inside story. You are very honored to be the first person to see the true power of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. You can die without regrets. Dizang of Goguryo was very arrogant, but he was not bluffing. He had the capital to be arrogant, so Tang Zheng did not dare to be careless. Seeing the black swastika approaching step by step, the powerful force actually offset the attraction of the black hole. He couldn't help but be deeply shocked. One must know that the sky-swallowing technique had reached the realm of sea shifting, but it was blocked by this black swastika. He could conclude that what Dizang of Goguryo said was true. The Ksitigarbha Sutra had indeed shone with great power, surpassing the original Ksitigarbha Sutra. Tang Zheng had already reached the second grade of the Mahayana realm, so his understanding of the Ksitigarbha Sutra had also reached a higher level, and he was very keen to discover the difference. Today's Ksitigarbha Sutra was fiercer, and the murderous aura was stronger. The vicious evil aura reached the heart and bewitched people. The dark Dizang of Goguryo's strength has increased greatly, and even the Ksitigarbha Sutra has become so strange and unpredictable. I can't agree to his conditions at all. Moreover, he is so ambitious that he even wants to touch the human world. In contrast, although the original Dizang of Goguryo had some unrealistic ideas, he did not have such sinister intentions. I must wake up the original Dizang of Goguryo. Tang Zheng silently made up his mind. The good side of the Dizang of Goguryo was also in that body. The dark side did not dare to obliterate the good side because the two were one. If either one was obliterated, the other would not survive. Although the good side was suppressed, it would certainly not give in and would try to break free from the shackles. With Tang Zheng's understanding of the original Dizang of Goguryeo, he was very sure of this. The only thing Tang Zheng had to do was to awaken the good side and let him live, so that he could suppress the dark side again and return the ghost world to a bright universe. Boom! With a loud noise, the black hole and the swastika collided. The black light danced, covering the sky and the sun. It was so dark that it made people unable to breathe. Tang Zheng took a step back and hurriedly stepped out. With a bang, the sole of his foot stepped into the ground and cracked inch by inch. Only then did he stop. The black swastika was very large. It was like a bottle stopper that blocked the black hole, making it impossible for it to absorb anything. This was equivalent to breaking the sky-swallowing technique. Tang Zheng never thought that his sky-swallowing technique would be broken like this. The situation was very unfavorable for him. He opened his mouth and recited the Ksitagarbha Sutra. Golden Sanskrit words also came out of his mouth and turned into a golden swastika to compete with the black swastika. Dizang of Goguryeo snorted and said, "That guy teaching you the Ksitagarbha Sutra was a big mistake. That was the result of his and my painstaking efforts. How can I just casually pass it on to others? The Ksitagarbha Sutra is mine, give it back to me." He grabbed with his big hand, and the black Sanskrit words actually turned into a ghost claw. It was pitch black and emitted an eerie chill. With this, there was no Buddhist aura at all. It was even more ruthless than the king of the netherworld in the 18 levels of hell. Song Jiangwang's eyelids twitched violently. He had seen how powerful the king of the netherworld was. The current Dizang of Goguryeo was far more powerful than the Dizang of Goguryeo. It made his hair stand on end. However, he had no way out. There was only one thought in his mind, and he prayed silently, "Dizang of Goguryeo, you must hold on. My life and the glory, splendor, and wealth for the rest of my life are all on you." Tang Zheng was completely focused. He stared at the ghost claw that came grabbing at him with a pale face. He felt a chill all over his body. The Ksitagarbha Sutra actually transformed this kind of ghost claw. The Dizang of Goguryeo was indeed a scourge. If he survived, he would definitely cause great chaos in the two worlds. If he was willing to be cut into pieces, what was there to be afraid of? Tang Zheng was resolute. Instead, he rushed toward the ghastly ghost claw. The black hole was sealed by the black swastika again. The golden swastika was torn into pieces by the ghost claw. The ghost claw grabbed at Tang Zheng's head. It seemed like it was about to grab him in the palm of its hand. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes changed abruptly. There was a hint of playfulness in them. Devouring sky technique. Whoosh! The black hole that fought against the black swastika disappeared into thin air. This scene gave everyone a fright. Why did the black hole suddenly disappear? Could it be that it was not a match for the Dizang of Goguryeo, so it retreated at the last minute? Tang Zheng's expression did not change. With a thought, the black hole appeared again. This time, the black hole did not fly out from his palm. Instead, it appeared behind the Dizang of Goguryeo out of thin air. This time, the black hole did not absorb everything in a frenzy. Its aura was not in disorder at all. It was to the extent that the Dizang of Goguryeo did not notice that there was a black hole behind him. The black hole was not a decoration. It did not absorb anything else, but it only absorbed one thing, the soul. All living beings in the world of ghosts were born from souls. The physical body was the soul, so attacks against the soul were particularly effective. The Yama's seal of the 10 kings of hell was a magic weapon that attacked the soul. It was also a treasure that the 10 kings of hell used to control their subordinates. Unfortunately, when these Yama's seal faced the Dizang of Goguryeo, it was destroyed by the Dizang of Goguryeo before it could exert its power. The Yama's seal could not cause harm to the Dizang of Goguryeo's soul, but it did not mean that it was impossible to do so in the world. When the devouring sky technique was cultivated to the soul-devouring realm, it could devour souls. Of course, if the caster's cultivation was too low, this soul-devouring technique would not have much effect on a real master. But now that Tang Zheng's cultivation was already at the second stage of the Mahayana realm, the power of this soul-devouring technique was extraordinary. The black hole quietly appeared behind the Dizang of Goguryeo. When Song Jiangwang saw this, he shouted, "Be careful behind you." However, this reminder was not enough. The soul-devouring technique had already exerted its power. The soul of the Dizang of Goguryeo was firmly attracted by the black hole. The Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly froze. The black swastika and ghost claw in mid-air exploded and scattered with the wind. Ah! The Dizang of Goguryeo screamed with all his might. His face was full of pain. Black lines stretched out from his scalp and covered his cheeks. It was ferocious and terrifying. Song Jiangwang's heart clenched, and he really wanted to rush up to him and give him a helping hand. But as soon as he took a step, he stopped. Although his cultivation was at the 9th stage of the demigod realm, there was a world of difference between him and the Dizang of Goguryeo and the Tangzheng. If he rashly joined in, he would be implicated and would not even know how he died. It was ridiculous that he, the dignified king of hell, had turned into a 9th stage demigod realm cultivator and became a spectator, unable to do anything. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. The feedback from the black hole made him particularly excited. The black hole had firmly captured the soul of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Chapter 1383. Dizang of Goguryeo's cheeks were already covered with black lines. He stared at Tang Zheng ferociously and shouted hysterically, "What did you do to me?" He was the person involved, so he felt it the most clearly. His soul had been hooked. For the beings of the world of ghosts, hooking souls was not a strange thing. Every day, ghost messengers would go to the human world to hook souls. Dizang of Goguryeo was well aware of the truth, but he never thought that his soul would be hooked one day. He used all his skills, and the black light surged, trying to break free from the effect of the sky-swallowing technique. However, it was easy to bite the hook, but it was not so easy to spit it out. He struggled for a long time, but there was no effect. He was really shocked, and his expression changed again and again. He suddenly said, "Is this the effect of the sky-swallowing technique?" "Hee, didn't you look down on my sky-swallowing technique? How does it feel now?" Tang Zheng asked jokingly. "You want to capture me with a mere insignificant skill? Dream on." Dizang of Goguryeo roared, and the black light surged all over his body. Sanskrit fluttered, and the infinite cassock had already turned black, like black ink. Whoosh! The infinite cassock shook and flew up, floating above Dizang of Goguryeo's head. Bursts of black light fell from the infinite cassock, enveloping the Dizang of Goguryeo. Roar! Dizang of Goguryeo's face became more and more ferocious. The black light around him turned into ferocious ghost heads, and countless skeletons were faintly discernible. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. This scene made him understand that Dizang of Goguryeo's dark side was indeed strange. The same Ksitigarbha Sutra in his hands could turn into such a gloomy and terrifying appearance. He never thought of it. He bit his tongue, and the tingling sensation made him sober and calm down. His mind was very firm, and he was not affected by Dizang of Goguryeo at all. According to the plan, he tried his best to activate the sky-swallowing skill. The sky-devouring technique had purposely restricted its ability to devour all things and was only limited to devouring souls. Immediately, the power of the sky-devouring technique was impressive. Whoosh! With the sound of ripping silk, the ghost head and white bones beside Dizang of Goguryeo were torn from his body. These ghost heads and white bones were not illusions. They were the forms he had created by absorbing the souls of other ghosts. Therefore, the sky-swallowing technique was also effective on these ghosts. After Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva took the initiative, he absorbed these souls in a short period of time. These souls were the souls of the die-hard followers of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva who did not listen to his orders and did not submit to him. He wouldn't be merciful and used a thunderous method to devour the souls of these followers and make them his own. These souls were like a layer of outer clothing for Dizang of Goguryeo. The sky-devouring technique ruthlessly stripped away this layer of outer clothing, exposing the core of Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo showed a look of panic and shouted loudly, "Stop!" How could Tang Zheng, who had just tasted the sweetness, stop? This sound seemed to be a horn that urged him to speed up. Immediately, the power of the sky-devouring technique increased again, and in an instant, it completely tore apart Dizang of Goguryeo's outer clothing and devoured all the souls that were disguised on the surface of Dizang of Goguryeo. Without the protection of his outer garments, the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva was completely exposed to the sky-swallowing technique. Soul-devouring. Tang Zheng let out a deafening roar. The black hole shone brightly, and the sky-devouring technique pulled Dizang of Goguryeo with all its might. A vague shadow seemed to be pulled out of Dizang of Goguryeo's body and then flew into the black hole. Dizang of Goguryeo's figure became blurred and became more and more ferocious. Tang Zheng knew that this was the most critical moment, so he didn't dare to take it lightly and used almost all of his skills. "Tang Zheng, don't you want Li Xiaotian to live? Then I'll fulfill your wish." Suddenly, Dizang of Goguryeo was at his wit's end and threatened Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression suddenly changed, and he gritted his teeth fiercely. He knew that this was Kitagarbha Bodhisattva trying to shake his mind and heart. As long as he was slightly soft-hearted, then not only would he suffer, but Li Xiaotian would also not be able to stay out of this. Since that was the case, there was no reason for him to retreat. He put all of his chips on it and gambled. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared not far away from Tang Zheng. Li Xiaotian. She was looking at Tang Zheng pitifully, with surprise and tenderness in her eyes. She wanted to cheer and jump for joy, but also wanted to rush directly into his arms. But immediately, she was drowned in pain. Before she could say a word, her body and mind were completely enveloped by inhuman torture. "Stop!" This time, it was Tang Zheng's turn to shout. However, how could Dizang of Goguryeo be obedient? He shouted proudly, "Don't you want to kill me? Then let her be buried with me. You don't deserve it." Tang Zheng shouted loudly. Li Xiaotian's importance to him was self-evident. How could he watch her be buried with his own eyes? Tang Zheng did not speak any more nonsense. He understood Dizang of Goguryeo's intentions very well, so he simply did not ask him to stop. Of course, he would not compromise with Dizang of Goguryeo. Making a deal with the devil was definitely not a good deal. The devil was vicious, so how could he abide by the spirit of the contract with you equally? "Li Xiaotian, I'm sorry." He shouted loudly. The power of the black hole increased greatly, and the swallowing sky technique enveloped Li Xiaotian as well. Li Xiaotian's eyes were red. She could not say a word, but she used all of her strength and kept shaking her head. Obviously, she didn't blame him. On the contrary, she encouraged him with her eyes. Li Xiaotian watched the dark side gain the upper hand and watched him eliminate the dissidents with thunderous means. She could imagine what would happen to the world of spirits and souls after the dark side gained power. At the critical moment, she would rather sacrifice herself than let Dizang of Goguryeo win. Because, in that case, the people she cared about would suffer a disaster, especially Tang Zheng, who would bear the brunt of it. Even his life would be in danger. If, by sacrificing her, there was a chance to defeat the dark side and curb this situation, she felt that it was a profitable business. Tang Zheng read Li Xiaotian's mind. Suddenly, his eyes turned red, and he had an impulse to hug his head and cry. He kept saying that he would protect her, but he didn't protect her well at all. He was like a coward who couldn't even protect his own woman. He hated himself. This hatred was monstrous and seemed to be able to devour everything. But soon, the spearhead of this hatred was aimed at Dizang of Goguryeo. All of this was caused by him. Kill. A murderous intent rushed out from the bottom of his heart along every meridian. In an instant, it filled this side of the world and swept toward Dizang of Goguryeo. Buzz. The black hole trembled, but it was not out of balance. Instead, it felt Tang Zheng's state of mind, and it was also angry. Whoosh. A terrifying suction force shot out from the black hole again, like a big net, covering Dizang of Goguryeo and Li Xiaotian. Chapter 1384. The black hole enveloped the souls of Dizang of Goguryeo and Li Xiaotian. Seeing himself approaching the black hole step by step, Dizang of Goguryeo was on the verge of despair. Li Xiaotian laughed and said, "Dizang of Goguryeo, you are high and mighty, insufferably arrogant, but in the end, you end up like this. It is worth it even if my soul is scattered." "No." Dizang of Goguryeo roared at the top of his lungs, activating the Ksitigarbha Sutra. However, although the Ksitigarbha Sutra was strong, the sky-swallowing technique had a natural restraining effect on souls. He already had no way out and was about to perish together with Li Xiaotian. After a while, the black light on Dizang of Goguryeo's body swayed, like a candle flame being blown by the wind, swaying unsteadily. Suddenly, whoosh! A golden light rushed into the sky, like a spark of fire, instantly covering his entire body, covering the black light. "Huh?" Tang Zheng furrowed his brows. "Tang Zheng, quickly stop, it's me." Dizang of Goguryeo's voice sounded, less ruthless and more gentle. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, Dizang of Goguryeo's kind side. However, he did not immediately come to a conclusion. The dark side was incomparably cunning, he could not rule out the possibility that he was deliberately mystifying. Li Xiaotian clearly also thought of this point, resolutely said, "Don't hesitate, this is definitely his scheme." Li Xiaotian's mind was outstanding, she naturally thought of the problem that Tang Zheng thought of. She did not want to waste time to distinguish between the truth and the lies. For this kind of thing, it was better to kill by mistake than to let the tiger return to the mountain. Of course, this meant that Li Xiaotian had to die together, but her heart did not waver in the slightest, her determination to sacrifice did not change. Tang Zheng looked at Li Xiaotian with a burning gaze. He could read her thoughts from her eyes, and his heart felt as if it had been ruthlessly stabbed by a knife. As he spoke, a beam of black light soared into the sky and clashed with the golden light. They were in a stalemate. "Why did you escape again?" Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva roared hysterically. Clearly, the dark side's momentum was surging again. The golden light did not back down, and the endless cassock slowly turned from black to gold. "You want to completely suppress me, but the heavens won't let you do as you wish. The heaven-devouring technique's soul-devouring power is too great, causing the soul to become unstable. How can you have the remaining strength to suppress me?" When Tang Zheng heard this, his heart skipped a beat. Could it be true? However, Li Xiaotian was not prepared to take the risk. He anxiously urged, "Tang Zheng, don't be soft-hearted. Sacrificing me can eliminate all dangerous factors. This is a good deal." Tang Zheng was incomparably conflicted. He had originally made up his mind, but when he saw a glimmer of hope, Li Xiaotian did not have to die, his determination was shaken again. In the end, he could not bear to see Li Xiaotian die. "Don't, Li Xiaotian, don't mislead Tang Zheng. As long as you find a way to suppress my dark side, everything can be restored to its original state." Dizang of Goguryeo's voice sounded again. This was clearly the good side. Tang Zheng looked at Dizang of Goguryeo with a burning gaze. He could not tell the truth because the other party was originally one. Dizang of Goguryeo read Tang Zheng's eyes and saw him fly to the edge of the black hole. His soul was about to be sucked into the black hole. Dizang of Goguryeo faintly sighed and said, "Tang Zheng, don't be conflicted. If I don't enter hell, who will? If you can stop my dark side, what is there to fear by sacrificing me?" Dizang of Goguryeo put his palms together. His appearance was solemn and there was not the slightest trace of fear. Tang Zheng looked at him absent-mindedly. This appearance was too familiar. It was the good side of Dizang of Goguryeo. Although he did not agree with many of Dizang of Goguryeo's methods, his intentions were good. His heart was moved and he made a decision. Dizang of Goguryeo's solemn appearance did not last for long. His expression suddenly changed and his vicious aura surged. He hysterically roared, "What are you doing? You are seeking your own death, do you understand?" hurry up and do it. Li Xiaotian urged. Song Jiangwang rolled his eyes and almost fainted. He had made a mistake in his bet. What awaited him next would definitely not be good. Of the 36 stratagems, the best is to leave. Song Jiangwang's eyes turned and he fled without looking at the final result. At this critical moment, of course, no one cared about whether Song Jiangwang stayed or left. That little thought was not worth mentioning in front of the big picture. Dizang of Goguryeo, I'll believe you this time. Tang Zheng suddenly roared. The black hole disappeared and his whole body shone with golden light. He put his hands together and started chanting the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Golden Sanskrit words flew out of his mouth and merged into the endless Kasaya. Dizang of Goguryeo and Li Xiaotian simultaneously broke free from the shackles and regained their freedom. Li Xiaotian's eyes revealed a look of disappointment. At the last moment, his heart softened. Tang Zheng was indeed soft-hearted. He would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. The kindness in his heart won over everything. Moreover, he could not bear to see Li Xiaotian's soul dissipate in front of him. If they were sucked into the heaven realm, Tang Zheng could not be sure of the consequences. One had to know that Tang Zheng had sucked living people into the black hole before, but now there were no such people in the heaven realm. This meant that after entering the heaven realm, these people would die or even have their souls dissipated. Although he was in charge of the heaven realm, the moment they entered the black hole, the terrifying tearing power was enough to make their souls dissipate. He did not dare to take this risk. If Li Xiaotian's soul dissipated, then he would have to kill her with his own hands. He swore to resurrect her, but in the end, it was completely ruined by his own hands. He could not accept this result. Moreover, Dizang of Goguryeo's words also moved him. If I don't go to hell, who will? At that moment, he believed that this was not a conspiracy of Dizang of Goguryeo. It was indeed the rise of Dizang of Goguryeo's good side. He wanted to help Dizang of Goguryeo's good side. He guessed that the Ksitigarbha Sutra must be the key to all of this, so he recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra in an attempt to control the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo. After the golden Sanskrit words merged into the endless Kasak, Dizang of Goguryeo's golden light surged, and the black light retreated. The endless Kasak also returned to its golden color. Dizang of Goguryeo looked solemn, completely suppressing his ruthlessness. A majestic voice sounded, "The situation is settled. Don't you think you can do it again?" Whoosh! A golden light rushed to the sky from the top of his head, turning into a golden swastika in mid-air, and a golden lotus bloomed under his feet. He sat cross-legged, put his hands together, and made a merciful gesture, reciting the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Golden Sanskrit characters danced around his body like golden butterflies dancing in the air, dazzling everyone's eyes. The black gas made a dying struggle. However, after the golden Sanskrit words from Tang Zheng's mouth continuously merged into Dizang of Goguryeo's body, everything gradually calmed down. Previously, the good side of Dizang of Goguryeo and the dark side fought. Although there were countless believers to help, all of their help added together was not as strong as Tang Zheng's strength. This was because the Ksitigarbha Sutra was the real Ksitigarbha Sutra. After comprehending the essence of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, one's skill was profound, and the support provided was naturally extraordinary. The cooperation of two people who had a deep understanding of the Ksitigarbha Sutra could not be underestimated. After the black gas struggled for a while, it was completely defeated. It retracted little by little, and finally disappeared completely. Amitabha, Buddha is merciful. Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly chanted the name of Buddha, and the golden light gradually dissipated. Tang Zheng also stopped chanting the Ksitigarbha Sutra, and looked at Dizang of Goguryeo with shining eyes. For eyes met, Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly smiled, stood up from the lotus, and bowed deeply to Tang Zheng, saying, "Tang Zheng, thank you for your merciful heart." Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice, "Dizang of Goguryeo, the dark side lost?" "Temporarily lost." "Temporarily?" Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. Wasn't this a ticking time bomb? It could rise from the ashes at any time. "Yes, the dark side is my personality, and even a part of my soul. I can't destroy it, so I can only suppress it. Dizang of Goguryeo said calmly, already aware of this reality. Then will it appear again? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Dizang of Goguryeo was silent for a while, and then said, it's possible. It's much stronger than when I suppressed it before. I also don't know when it will rise again and take the initiative of this body. This was Dizang of Goguryeo's eternal pain. His life's belief was to deliver all living beings from torment, but in the end, even he was not truly enlightened. It had to be said that this was a kind of regret, and even a kind of irony. He didn't think about this before, but now he felt incomparably bitter, and his previous persistence seemed somewhat laughable. Tang Zheng's eyes rose to his throat, and he asked unwillingly, is there no way to get it done once and for all? Dizang of Goguryeo shook his head and said bitterly, if there was, I would have found it long ago. Back then, I suppressed him in the sea of bitterness, thinking that it was foolproof. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. The sea of bitterness disappeared, and he finally saw the light of day again. Perhaps, this is the will of the heavens, a test from the heavens for me. Hearing him mention the sea of bitterness, Tang Zheng understood that his sudden action had caused such a chain reaction. He said embarrassedly, Dizang of Goguryeo, this is all my fault. If I didn't destroy the sea of bitterness, Dizang of Goguryeo waved his hand and interrupted him, no, this is not your fault. I trapped you in the sea of bitterness, this is the cause, you destroyed the sea of bitterness, this is the effect. If there is no cause, there is no effect. So, this is all my fault. Dizang of Goguryeo took the initiative to take the responsibility on his shoulders, which made Tang Zheng slightly moved. This was the responsibility of both sides. Since things had happened, it was not his style to retreat. He believed that there was always a way out, just like himself in the sea of bitterness. He originally thought that there was no way out, but he never thought that there would be a glimmer of hope. This matter was the same. Although Dizang of Goguryeo vowed that there was no way to suppress the dark side, he did not give up. He did not give up and asked, Dizang of Goguryeo, there is always a way out. Think about it, there will always be a way. There is always a way out. It seemed that Tang Zheng's emotions had infected him. He looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. The golden light in his eyes was unfathomable. Tang Zheng did not disturb him. Instead, his gaze turned and fell on Li Xiaotian. Are you okay? Li Xiaotian smiled. Although Tang Zheng's final compromise disappointed her, she also understood that he could not bear to see her soul disappear. She flew into Tang Zheng's arms and said softly, I'm fine. She raised her head slightly and looked at him affectionately. Thank you. I got it. Chapter 1385. Dizang of Goguryeo's shout shocked Tang Zheng. He turned his head, surprised and happy, there's a way. Li Xiaotian also looked at him with shining eyes. Dizang of Goguryeo nodded, yes, there is another way. But this method has a key condition that can't be achieved at all, so I didn't think of it at first. Dizang of Goguryeo showed a regretful expression. Tang Zheng's head sank. Just when there was a glimmer of hope, he was immediately thrown into the abyss, rising and falling like a roller coaster. What's the way? Tell us and let's brainstorm, maybe we can solve it. Tang Zheng could not hide his depressed mood. Li Xiaotian could not help but hold Tang Zheng's hand tightly, eager to know the answer. Okay. Dizang of Goguryeo said, there is another thing in the world of spirits and souls that can suppress my dark side. However, this thing has long been lost, and I don't know where it is. That's why I said there's no way to achieve it. Tang Zheng's interest was aroused. What else in the world of spirits and souls could suppress Dizang of Goguryeo's dark side? He had personally seen the magic of the sea of bitterness. Was there anything similar in the world of spirits and souls other than the sea of bitterness? What is it? Tang Zheng asked. 9 nether iron. Dizang of Goguryeo could not hide his disappointment. What? Tang Zheng was shocked, thinking that he had heard wrongly. Are you talking about the 9 nether iron? Dizang of Goguryeo looked at him in surprise, not knowing why he had such a big reaction, and asked, "Is there a problem? You said that the 9 nether iron can suppress your dark side?" Tang Zheng asked in disbelief. Dizang of Goguryeo nodded, "Yes, don't you believe me?" "No." Tang Zheng's mouth curved into a smile, and he wanted to cheer, "God is really helping me." The 5-clawed golden dragon was trapped under the imperial city, and its 5 dragon claws were locked by the 9 nether iron. Even the 5-clawed golden dragon could not break free from the 9 nether iron. From this, it could be seen that the 9 nether iron was extraordinary. The 5-clawed golden dragon had once said that the 9 mysterious iron was one of the best materials for forging weapons and refining magic treasure. Later on, Tang Zheng also suddenly had an idea to try and forge the 9 mysterious iron into a magic treasure. It was easy said, it was really too difficult to do. Of Goguryeo of Goguryeo. Was Goguryeo of Goguryeo. Goguryeo of Goguryeo of Goguryeo of Goguryeo had almost would have forgotten about its existence had Goguryeo had of Gagagu of Gagagagu of Gogoyo Gagagurian, he of Gagagaguryo of would, it was almost forgotten about it. Dizang of Goguryeo was smart. When he saw Tang Zheng's reaction, his heart moved, and he asked, "How do you know about the 9 nether iron?" The 9 nether iron was an item of the ghost realm. Even in the ghost realm, very few people knew about its existence. Tang Zheng was a living person. How could he know about the 9 nether iron? Moreover, he seemed to be very familiar with it. Dizang of Goguryeo had a huge question mark in his heart. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, "If you have other conditions, maybe there really is no way, but you mentioned the 9 nether iron. This is really the will of God. I can't find other things, but if you want the 9 nether iron, you can have it." What? Dizang of Goguryeo was really moved. He was still guessing the meaning of Tang Zheng's words, but this sentence directly revealed the whole story. He actually had the 9 nether iron. How was this possible? This was the first thought that popped up in Dizang of Goguryeo's mind. In order to suppress his dark side, he almost searched the entire ghost realm, but he didn't see the shadow of the 9 nether iron. How could it run to Tang Zheng? "How do you have the 9 nether iron?" Dizang of Goguryeo blurted out. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and sighed in his heart. This was really the will of God. He almost regarded the 9 nether iron as a useless thing, but he didn't expect it to become a key thing now. "I also obtained it by chance in the imperial city," Tang Zheng explained in a few words. The more Dizang of Goguryeo listened, the rounder his eyes became. Finally, he had to sigh. It turns out that the 9 nether iron has been in the human world for a long time. No wonder I couldn't find it in the ghost realm. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. Tang Zheng was a little uncomfortable under his gaze and said, "Why are you looking at me like this?" "This is the will of God." Dizang of Goguryeo said in a deep voice, "I never thought that you would bring me the 9 nether iron." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "I also never thought that the 9 nether iron would have such a big role. I only know that it is a good material for forging weapons and refining magic weapons." Dizang of Goguryeo nodded, "You are right. The 9 nether iron is a good material for refining magic weapons. You must have tried to forge it." Dizang of Goguryeo paused for a moment. Without waiting for Tang Zheng to answer, he continued, "You don't have to answer. I know the answer. You must have failed." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly, "I am not strong enough. I did fail. There is no way to refine the 9 nether iron, let alone refine it into magic weapons. Of course you won't succeed." Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was not surprised at all. You people in the human world like to use true fire to refine magic weapons. I don't know what grade your true fire has reached, but even if it has reached the highest grade of 6th grade true fire, you can forget about refining the mysterious 9 serenities iron. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Oh, why do you say that?" "The 9 nether iron is an item of the ghost realm. The flames of the outside world cannot refine it. Only the ghost fire of the ghost realm can. Ghost fire? Tang Zheng's head moved, and a picture flashed in his mind. A blue flame floated in the air like a flower. He had encountered ghost fire before, but in his opinion, it was too weak. It was not as strong as his true fire. Is ghost fire so powerful? Tang Zheng asked in disbelief. Dizang of Goguryeo nodded and said, I know what you are thinking. Ghost fire is not strong. Almost all the cultivators of the ghost realm can use ghost fire. But have you ever heard of the principle that there is always one thing to overcome another? Tang Zheng thought about it and nodded gently. Although the will-o'-the-wisp is not strong, it has a restraining effect on the mysterious 9 serenities iron. It can refine the mysterious 9 serenities iron into a magic treasure. Kitagarbha Bodhisattva said solemnly. Li Xiaotian was slightly absent-minded. With a thought, a ball of flame appeared in his palm. It flickered with a faint blue light. This ball of flame did not feel hot, but it gave people a very cold feeling. It did not seem to be a flame, but a block of ice. Li Xiaotian comprehended the Ksitagarbha Sutra and was a member of the ghost realm. But she was in the ghost realm for such a short time and could easily use ghost fire. It was obvious that ghost fire was not a rare thing in the ghost realm. Tang Zheng stared at the ghost fire. He wanted to take out the 9 nether iron and test it. He restrained this impulse and looked at Dizang of Goguryeo and said, Now that we have found the 9 nether iron, how can we use it to suppress your dark side? In addition, will the dark side break free from its shackles like in the sea of bitterness and bring disaster to the world again? This question was very direct and did not care about Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo did not care because Tang Zheng's question was straight to the point. Chapter 1386. Tang Zheng originally thought that there was no big problem, but he never heard that it was impossible, which was tantamount to bad news. He stared blankly at Dizang of Goguryeo and asked, Why can't you do it? Dizang of Goguryeo said bitterly, The strength of the dark side will increase day by day, the mysterious underworld iron can suppress it, but there is no way to suppress it forever. Once the strength of the dark side reaches a certain level, it will naturally regain its freedom. Tang Zheng couldn't help but roll his eyes. This was really too much nonsense. This was not a foolproof method at all. However, Dizang of Goguryeo's expression told him that there was indeed no foolproof method. He sighed in disappointment. It seemed that he could only temporarily suppress the dark side. It was better than nothing. When do we start? Tang Zheng asked. Naturally, the sooner the better. Dizang of Goguryeo didn't want to delay any longer and have more problems. Suppressing the dark side in the body was also a very torturous thing. Can we do it now? Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes lit up. It couldn't be better. The two of you please follow me. Dizang of Goguryeo led the way. The three of them together came to a secret basement in the depths of the palace. The miscellaneous people had already been purged. The huge basement only had Tang Zheng, Dizang of Goguryeo, and Li Xiaotian. This way, we won't be disturbed. Suppressing my dark side is not an easy task. We can't be disturbed. Dizang of Goguryeo said in a low voice. Tang Zheng nodded slightly, knowing that it was time to take out the mysterious underworld iron. His mind moved. Whoosh! A light flashed. Spreading to every corner of the space, several big guys appeared in front of Dizang of Goguryeo. It really is the mysterious underworld iron. Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes lit up, staring at these big guys. The mysterious 9 underworld iron was forged into chains to bind the claws of the 5-clawed golden dragon. From this, it could be seen that these 5 chains were no ordinary people. How could they possibly bind the gigantic 5-clawed golden dragon? Dizang of Goguryeo stared at the 9 serenities mysterious iron with burning eyes. He could not help but touch it. This was something that he had been dreaming of, and he did not expect it to appear in front of him like this. Hey, someone has refined the mysterious 9 serenities iron. Dizang of Goguryeo frowned. Tang Zheng did not know the original form of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Back then, it was Xian Yin who used the mysterious 9 underworld iron to imprison the dragon clan. As for how Xianyin obtained the mysterious 9 underworld iron and refined it into chains, he did not know. Dizang of Goguryeo didn't want to delve into it. He opened his palm, and a ball of will-o'-the-wisp rose into the air and hovered in the center of his palm. He said, "If you want to use the mysterious 9 underworld iron to suppress my dark side, you must first refine the mysterious 9 underworld iron and then suppress it during this process. Then we shall wait and see." Tang Zheng made an inviting gesture and pulled Li Xiaotian back a few steps. They watched quietly. Dizang of Goguryeo stared straight at the mysterious 9 underworld iron. His eyes shone with a strange light. He did not say a word, and his expression became serious. Whoosh! A flame flew out from the will-o'-the-wisp. It was like a small fire snake, and it slithered along the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Wherever the fire snake passed, the mysterious 9 underworld iron would also burn. However, this flame did not have any temperature. It did not give people a feeling of burning heat. Instead, it was like a cold wind blowing past, causing people to tremble. Li Xiaotian stared at Dizang of Goguryeo without blinking. She wanted to see how he controlled the will-o'-the-wisp. Although she could activate the will-o'-the-wisp, her cultivation was too shallow after all. She was far from Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo was fully focused. In an instant, the will-o'-the-wisp had completely enveloped the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron turned blue and was melting little by little. Tang Zheng was very different. The ghost world and the human world were two different worlds. There were many places that were completely different, such as this scene. Under the effect of the will-o'-the-wisp, the mysterious 9 underworld iron did not turn red. Instead, it turned blue. Finally, it turned into a flowing liquid, like a stream flowing on the ground. Finally, it gathered together. The indestructible mysterious 9 underworld iron in Tang Zheng's hands was defeated so quickly. It was beyond Tang Zheng's expectations. Everything had its vanquisher. It was indeed so. His heart moved. He couldn't help but think that if he used the true fire and the will-o'-the-wisp at the same time when refining the magic weapon, would there be a miraculous effect? No. He immediately shook his head and rejected this seemingly tempting idea. Because this was simply impossible to achieve. Although the true fire and the will-o'-the-wisp both had the word fire, they were two completely different types of energy. How could it be possible to combine them and refine the magic weapon together? This was equivalent to a fantasy story. Abandoning these messy thoughts, he concentrated on looking at Dizang of Goguryeo. Along with the change of his hand gesture, the mysterious 9 underworld iron changed shape in his palm. Suddenly, Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes revealed a touch of color. Whoosh! Golden light shone brightly. Dizang of Goguryeo turned into a big golden man. The endless Kasaya moved without wind and floated up like a cape. It kept fluttering behind him, making flapping sounds. The color in his eyes became more and more intense. It spread to the corners of his eyes, as if it wanted to rush out of his eyes and spread to other places. Amitabha. Dizang of Goguryeo chanted the name of Buddha. He put his palms together and stared at the mysterious 9 underworld iron that was still spinning in front of him. He said, "Evil creature, do you still want to make meaningless resistance? Everything is over." After saying that, Dizang of Goguryeo stretched out a finger and pointed at the corner of his eye. The light was like a flood that broke through a dam. It poured out in torrents and merged into Dizang of Goguryeo's fingertip. Hua! Golden light suddenly appeared. A golden swastika firmly wrapped the light. The light kept struggling, but there was no way to break through the shackles of the swastika. Dizang of Goguryeo didn't dare to lower his guard. His finger quickly moved to the front of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron emitted a faint blue light. As soon as the light touched the light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron, it immediately made a sharp sound and kept retreating. It seemed to be very afraid. However, there was a golden swastika behind it. There was no way to retreat. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian watched as the light was merged with the faint blue light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. At first, the light was unwilling and struggled to break through. However, in the end, the light calmed down and was completely covered by the faint blue light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. It couldn't jump up anymore and even disappeared. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian knew that the light didn't disappear. It was just suppressed by the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Once the opponent's strength was strong enough, the mysterious 9 underworld iron might not be able to suppress it. At that time, it would definitely be another scene that would cause a complete upheaval in the world of spirits and souls. Phew, Dizang of Goguryeo let out a long sigh. Different situations call for different measures. It was too early to think about this now. For now, they had won. At least the dark side was completely suppressed by the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron turned into a faint blue molten iron. Under the control of Dizang of Goguryeo's palm, it kept changing shape. In the end, the mysterious 9 underworld iron turned into a big ball and finally stopped. It fell to the ground with a bang and smashed a big hole in the bluestone floor. Dizang of Goguryeo was relieved, but he looked at the mysterious 9 underworld iron with a complicated expression. Whoosh! A light flashed through the big ball and instantly attracted the attention of several people. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were shocked. Li Xiaotian couldn't wait to ask, "Is that your dark side?" Dizang of Goguryeo nodded without hesitation. Yes. As he spoke, the ghost fire that wrapped the mysterious 9 underworld iron disappeared little by little. The originally faint blue liquid mysterious 9 underworld iron slowly solidified and finally turned into a big ball as black as ink. No matter how bright that light was, it almost merged with the mysterious 9 underworld iron and couldn't be distinguished. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at the big ball with shining eyes. This was made of mysterious 9 underworld iron, and it was extraordinary. In addition, the original 5 chains seemed to be a lot of mysterious 9 underworld iron. However, in the hands of Dizang of Goguryeo, the impurities were completely refined by the ghost fire and turned into a big ball. Its original size couldn't be compared at all. 5 chains turned into a ball. This mysterious 9 underworld iron shrank too much. Tang Zheng sighed resentfully. Dizang of Goguryeo raised his head and said, "You're an amateur. There were too many impurities in the chains just now." Obviously, the people who refined the mysterious 9 underworld iron before were very careless, or their strength was limited. They couldn't refine all the impurities in it. Dizang of Goguryeo redid it, removed the rot and took the essence, and then it changed greatly into this appearance. In the past, when Tang Zheng faced such a huge amount of mysterious 9 underworld iron, he didn't know what magic weapon to make, because there were too many choices. But now, there was only one big ball left. He basically had no choice. Thus, he could only forge one sword. However, the mysterious 9 underworld iron suppressed the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo. It was a matter of great importance. If he took out the mysterious 9 underworld iron, he might not have the chance to take it back. He didn't take the initiative to mention it. After all, the mysterious 9 underworld iron was also an item of the ghost realm. If the Dizang of Goguryeo took it back, it would be returning it to its original owner. Moreover, the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo was suppressed in it, which was equivalent to a time bomb. Tang Zheng was also very worried. If one day in the future, the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo regained freedom, and the mysterious 9 underworld iron was by his side, wouldn't he be the first to bear the brunt of the attack? However, the mysterious 9 underworld iron was a rare material for refining magic weapons. After this village, there wouldn't be such a shop. Tang Zheng was currently lacking an attack magic weapon. Ever since the War Spirit Sword fell into the hands of Qiyu, there wasn't a magic weapon that he could use to display the heaven-flying immortal sword technique and the Tai Chi two-form sword technique. This was tantamount to greatly reducing his combat strength. Of course, he wanted to make up for it. Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, a ball flew to his eyelids. He was stunned and looked at the Dizang of Goguryeo suspiciously. The Dizang of Goguryeo said, I have been searching for so many years, but I still couldn't find the mysterious 9 underworld iron. In the end, it is in your hands. Perhaps, it should belong to you and not me. Tang Zheng was thoughtful, and looked at the Dizang of Goguryeo as if he didn't understand. He only heard the Dizang of Goguryeo continue to say, this is the will of the heavens. Then I will follow the will of the heavens and return the mysterious 9 underworld iron to you. You want to return it to me? Tang Zheng was really shocked, and looked at the Dizang of Goguryeo in disbelief. The Dizang of Goguryeo nodded solemnly, yes, I hope you can keep it well. Since the mysterious 9 underworld iron is destined to belong to you, and my dark side is suppressed in it, maybe in the future, you will think of a way to solve this problem once and for all. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You can't, how can I? You have full confidence in me. The key is that even I don't have this blind confidence. Chapter 1387. Tang Zheng stared deeply at Dizang of Goguryeo, convinced that he was not speaking casually. Seeing the round mysterious 9 nether iron spinning in front of him, he was sure that the other party was serious. All right then. Tang Zheng was not a long-winded person, simply taking the mysterious 9 nether iron in his hand. A cold feeling came from the mysterious 9 nether iron, drilling into his palm, as if to cool his blood. But this feeling immediately disappeared. The mysterious 9 nether iron had a special nature, containing yin qi, so this kind of situation occurred. The mysterious 9 nether iron had already returned to its pitch-black color, firmly attracting Tang Zheng's gaze, but after looking for a while, he still could not find any clues. Dizang of Goguryeo's dark side was suppressed within, and it was not something that could be seen with just one's eyes. I hope that one day you can find a way to solve this once and for all. Dizang of Goguryeo said sincerely. Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a bitter smile, saying, if you don't have a way, how can I? Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva could not deny it. He looked at him with bright eyes. Tang Zheng put the mysterious 9 nether iron back into Sumeru world, and Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Tang Zheng with an even brighter gaze, saying meaningfully, Tang Zheng, I really did not think that you would use that kind of method to escape the sea of bitterness. Tang Zheng's head thumped, this time back to the main topic, and his body could not help but tense up. After all, he did not follow Dizang of Goguryeo's words to turn back and be saved, and escape the sea of bitterness. Instead, he used the sky-swallowing technique to forcefully destroy the sea of bitterness, and then escape. The sea of bitterness was of great significance to Dizang of Goguryeo, and if he vented his anger on Tang Zheng, then Tang Zheng's days would not be easy. He had to be on guard. Dizang of Goguryeo obviously noticed the change in Tang Zheng. He smiled faintly and said, are you afraid of me? Tang Zheng's expression turned cold as he said somewhat unnaturally, why would I be afraid of you? Dizang of Goguryeo nodded heavily. Yes, you don't have to be afraid of me. But you must be worried that I will vent my anger on you because of the sea of misery. Tang Zheng smiled and shrugged. If that's the case, then there's nothing I can do. Hee, you're quite open-minded. If I hadn't experienced all these things, I definitely wouldn't have let you go so easily. Because you are far from my original intention. I want you to comprehend the true essence of the Ksitagarbha Sutra, and thus gain enlightenment. Repent and be saved, and be free from the sea of bitterness. Dizang of Goguryeo said with a complicated tone. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. He didn't guess wrong. In fact, the trick to escape the sea of bitterness was in the Ksitagarbha Sutra. It's just that he couldn't convince himself to accept Dizang of Goguryeo's idea. Naturally, he couldn't comprehend the true essence of it. You don't have to say any more. After I merged with the dark side, I know everything you did in the sea of bitterness. I have to say that you are very lucky to have such a heaven-defying ability like the sky-swallowing technique. Perhaps, this is the will of the heavens. Dizang of Goguryeo said in a deep voice. If that's the case, then I naturally won't blame you for the sea of bitterness. Dizang of Goguryeo paused for a moment and concluded. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted. Li Xiaotian's eyes lit up, and she couldn't hide her excitement. She couldn't help but hold Tang Zheng's hand and look up at him. Looking at her eyes, Tang Zheng's heart tightened. He naturally thought of her situation and said, Dizang of Goguryeo, no matter what you think, regarding Li Xiaotian, I will never retreat. Even if you want to trap me in another place, I will not compromise even half a step. Li Xiaotian didn't expect Tang Zheng to say these words so firmly. There was no room for negotiation. Her face suddenly changed. She covered Tang Zheng's mouth and begged, don't say any more. I'd rather stay in the ghost realm. As long as you are safe and sound, you have more important responsibilities. You can't be trapped in the ghost realm because of me. After experiencing all the previous things, Li Xiaotian's heart was shaken. She didn't want Tang Zheng to repeat the same mistake and be trapped again. She would rather sacrifice herself than let Tang Zheng have any mishaps. Tang Zheng held her hand tightly. He moved his lips and said, I've made up my mind. No one can change it. I have to resurrect you. This is my promise to you. I will definitely do it. Li Xiaotian's heart warmed. She said emotionally, Tang Zheng, why do you have to do this? Tang Zheng gazed at her gently and said affectionately, you've done so many things for me, but I haven't done anything for you. This is to make up for my previous mistakes. Li Xiaotian shook her head slightly, you weren't wrong before. You've always done well. No, I didn't do enough before. The two pairs of hands firmly held each other, and the two pairs of eyes stared at each other without blinking. You have me in you, I have you in me. Cough. A dry cough interrupted their sentimental conversation. They were suddenly startled. When they came back to their senses, Li Xiaotian shyly looked at Tang Zheng and lowered her head. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at Dizang of Goguryeo. This dry cough was made by Dizang of Goguryeo. He looked at them with a complicated expression and said, I haven't said anything yet. Why are you guys like this? Tang Zheng had already experienced Dizang of Goguryeo's stubbornness. He lightly said, what can your words change? Are you going to help her return to life? Tang Zheng didn't expect this at all. Dizang of Goguryeo's temper was even worse than his. He didn't expect anything at all. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at him seriously and asked, is that how you see me? Tang Zheng wasn't afraid of him getting angry. He nodded and said, you have always been this kind of person, right? Dizang of Goguryeo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He let out a long sigh and said, I used to stick to my principles and thought that principles couldn't be broken. But you gave me a vivid lesson. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. He didn't quite understand and asked, what do you mean? Dizang of Goguryeo didn't directly answer. Instead, he meaningfully said, it is important for a person to have principles. But principles aren't unbreakable. Sometimes, principles can be changed. Changed? Tang Zheng's eyes widened. Did he think that the sun rose from the west? Wasn't this a fantasy? If these words were said by someone else, Tang Zheng wouldn't question it. He wouldn't have such a big reaction. But these words were said by Dizang of Goguryeo, so he couldn't believe it. Dizang of Goguryeo sighed and said, am I really a synonym for stubbornness in your heart? I can also change. Moreover, all of these changes were brought about by you. Tang Zheng gradually understood Dizang of Goguryeo's intentions. He thought for a while and his eyes lit up as he said, could it be that you agree to let Li Xiaotian come back to life? Li Xiaotian's heart also jumped to her throat. This answer was related to her life and death. It was related to whether she could stay by Tang Zheng's side in the future. Looking at their burning eyes, Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes became deep. In the end, he said in a deep voice, Tang Zheng, I agree to let Li Xiaotian come back to life. This is a victory that you fought for. Chapter 1388. This victory was not easy to come by. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at each other, almost unable to believe their ears. Dizang of Goguryeo actually agreed to let Li Xiaotian return to the living world. Did the sun rise from the west? Are you serious? Tang Zheng confirmed in disbelief. Dizang of Goguryeo said seriously, do you want me to take back what I said just now? No. Tang Zheng hurriedly waved his hand, and Li Xiaotian also smiled through her tears. Her smile was like a flower, and she looked at Tang Zheng with tenderness. Tang Zheng laughed foolishly. This victory was not easy to come by. He was almost desperate, but he was rescued from the jaws of death. Then what are we waiting for? Tang Zheng couldn't wait. Don't worry, I won't change my mind so quickly. Dizang of Goguryeo said. Yes. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at the two of them deeply and said, don't think that I will agree with your point of view just because I changed my mind. I will let you understand what a big mistake is. Tang Zheng thought and asked, do you still think that saving all living beings and equality is right? Dizang of Goguryeo nodded without hesitation. This was his lifelong belief, the foundation that inspired him to work hard. How could he be shaken? If this belief was shaken, it would be like the foundation of a tall building being shaken, and everything would fall apart. Tang Zheng sighed and did not force him. He said, everyone has their own aspirations, and they all have their own beliefs and perseverance. There is no need to let the other party completely approve of you. Dizang of Goguryeo shook his head. No, when you come to the world of spirits and souls again in the future, you will witness my success. The world of spirits and souls will have a new atmosphere, thriving, and not so lifeless like a pool of stagnant water. Seeing that he was full of confidence, Tang Zheng did not dwell on this issue. Although they had experienced countless dangers on this trip, at least the mission was completed. Moreover, there were additional rewards. Following this, the Dizang of Goguryeo began to deal with the affairs of the ghost realm. Song Jiangwang had escaped, but the Dizang of Goguryeo did not pay any attention to him. In his eyes, Dizang of Goguryeo was no different from other living beings in the world of spirits and souls. He could not cause any big waves. His followers returned to his embrace and carried out his orders meticulously. Tang Zheng witnessed all this with his own eyes, and he couldn't help but be secretly speechless. Dizang of Goguryeo's action was very strong, and his appeal was unparalleled. The craziness of his followers was jaw-dropping. Finally, Dizang of Goguryeo dealt with the aftermath of the dark side, and it was time to resurrect Li Xiaotian. It wasn't easy to revive a ghost. It wasn't as simple as letting the soul return to the body. It also required the power of the Eye of Reincarnation. So, they came to the Eye of Reincarnation. The Eye of Reincarnation was still working in an orderly manner. One by one, the ghosts were reincarnated, and the ghost envoys and ghost generals were in charge of the order here. When they saw the Dizang of Goguryeo, these ghost envoys and ghost generals saluted him. Even those muddle-headed ghosts stopped and looked at him with reverence. This was a feeling from the bottom of their hearts. In the past, the Dizang of Goguryeo had to secretly convert the ghosts in the Eye of Reincarnation, so that after they reincarnated, their souls would agree with his ideas. Now that he didn't have to hide it from others, he could openly purify the ghosts and let them reincarnate. If the ghosts were not converted, naturally, they were not qualified to be reincarnated. Revisiting the old place, Tang Zheng looked at this scene and felt a lot of emotions. The world of spirits and souls had completely undergone earth-shaking changes. At least the Dizang of Goguryeo did not completely break off with him, and even agreed to resurrect Li Xiaotian. To a certain extent, the relationship between the two sides was better. The Dizang of Goguryeo looked at this group of ghosts and said, I can see the hope of success from them. Tang Zheng smiled and did not refute, but in his heart, he disagreed. The Dizang of Goguryeo no longer tried to persuade Tang Zheng, and directly came under the Eye of Reincarnation. Above his head, the Eye of Reincarnation slowly rotated, emitting a mysterious power. The other ghosts retreated and looked at them curiously. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian also stood under the Eye of Reincarnation, looking at the Dizang of Goguryeo with burning eyes, not knowing what he would do. Take out her body. The Dizang of Goguryeo said. Tang Zheng was not surprised, the Dizang of Goguryeo must know that he kept her body. So, with a thought from Tang Zheng, Li Xiaotian's body floated in the air, quiet and peaceful, like a sleeping beauty, exactly the same as when she was alive. It was the first time that Li Xiaotian saw himself from this angle. He could not take his eyes off it, and his breathing could not help but quicken. Anyone who saw their own body would have a change in their heart. Of course, this was not an experience that everyone would have. Tang Zheng patted Li Xiaotian's shoulder to comfort him. Li Xiaotian squeezed out a smile and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." The Dizang of Goguryu's expression was normal. He glanced at the body, nodded and said, "You've preserved it well, this is more beneficial for the resurrection." "Then what do we do now?" Tang Zheng asked. "Just watch and see." After the Dizang of Goguryo finished speaking, his eyes focused on Li Xiaotian. "No matter what happens in a while, you don't have to be nervous or afraid." Li Xiaotian smiled faintly, understood. Tang Zheng gently kissed Li Xiaotian's forehead and said, "Leave everything to me." Li Xiaotian smiled, his dimples like a flower. The air suddenly became heavy, everything was quiet, all eyes were fixed on the Dizang of Goguryo. The Dizang of Goguryo slowly raised his hands, whoosh, a burst of energy rose out of thin air. Li Xiaotian's body steadily stopped right below the eye of reincarnation. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian found that he could not move, wrapped in a burst of energy, slowly rising and flying towards the eye of reincarnation. Tang Zheng's heart tightened, his eyes burning as he stared at her. The eye of reincarnation rotated, like the center of a storm. Suddenly, a beam of light descended from the center, landing on Li Xiaotian's body. She was immediately bathed in a mysterious light. Li Xiaotian found that her body was illuminated. From the inside to the outside, she was completely wrapped in light. Finally, she became transparent. However, her consciousness was very clear, and this process did not cause her any pain. Whoosh! She approached the eye of reincarnation in the light, and with a whoosh, she disappeared into the eye of reincarnation. Tang Zheng's heart tightened, he could no longer see Li Xiaotian. He was afraid that something bad had happened to her in the eye of reincarnation. The Dizang of Goguryo's expression was normal, causing Tang Zheng's heart to gradually calm down. He secretly told himself that the Dizang of Goguryo was so confident that nothing bad would happen to her. Time passed minute by minute, second by second. The Dizang of Goguryo spoke with conviction, rays of golden light rising from his body, fusing into the eye of reincarnation. The eye of reincarnation rotated even faster, whoosh, 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 the aura was ever-changing. The soul of this life, the body of the previous life, the soul returns to the body, the soul and the body become one, return to the sun and be reborn. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva muttered to himself. As the last word left his mouth, it was like an earth-shattering explosion. The eye of reincarnation rumbled even louder than thunder, shaking everyone's heartstrings. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, staring straight at the eye of reincarnation. Rays of light shot down from the center, completely landing on Li Xiaotian's body. The body suddenly straightened, as if welcoming the arrival of something. Whoosh! In the rays of light, even more dazzling light spots sprinkled from the eye of reincarnation, quickly drifting towards the body. "What is this?" Tang Zheng exclaimed, thinking that something had happened. The Dizang of Goguryo glanced at him and said, "This is the soul transformed by the eye of reincarnation. Only in this way can it truly integrate into her body and return to the sun and be reborn." Tang Zheng suddenly realized that there was such a thing. The other people in the world of spirits and souls might not know about this. Tang Zheng's attention was completely attracted by this scene, and no matter what, there was no way he could look away. The transformed soul completely sprinkled from the eye of reincarnation, floating on the body, and in the next second, rushed into the body. The body was suddenly startled, and the straight body bent into an arc. Tang Zheng moved his head thoughtfully, realizing that something seemed to have happened. But all of this was not over yet. The light of the eye of reincarnation was still bathing the body, and the light was so bright that the body could not be seen with the naked eye. But Tang Zheng had a feeling that the body was still there, and mysterious changes were taking place. The Dizang of Goguryeo stopped his movements and looked at the light with satisfaction, as if admiring his work. The Eye of Reincarnation finally stopped rotating, and the light was completely withdrawn, returning to the Eye of Reincarnation. Li Xiaotian's figure was exposed in front of him again, but she was in a standing position, slender and elegant, like a water lotus that stood alone in the world. Tang Zheng was pleasantly surprised, and couldn't wait to rush over, stopping in front of her. He stretched out his hand, wanting to touch her, but was afraid of disturbing her, so his hands stopped in midair. The Dizang of Goguryeo's mouth curved into a smile, but he did not stop him, but looked at the two with interest. Whoosh! Li Xiaotian's eyes opened, overflowing with vitality. Tang Zheng's heart moved, such a strong vitality was enough to show that he was a living person. You're finally alive. Tang Zheng stammered, speaking incoherently. Li Xiaotian looked at him indifferently, her eyes were a bit sluggish, but immediately filled with joy. Tang Zheng. She hesitated, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. It's me, it's me. Tang Zheng hurriedly nodded, his heart slightly sour. Although Li Xiaotian's voice was the same as a ghost's voice, it contained a trace of vitality, and was fundamentally different. Li Xiaotian looked at herself, stretched out her hand, and touched her cheek, saying, I've really been resurrected? Tang Zheng grabbed her hand and placed it on his cheek. The warm touch was completely different from the original cold. He confirmed that she had indeed been reborn, and that his promise to her had been fulfilled. You've finally returned to my side. Tang Zheng was emotional, tightly hugging her. Leaning in his embrace was like the safest and most reliable harbor in the world, making his heart feel exceptionally peaceful. Tears flowed out, wetting her clothes. She couldn't help but hug him, as if she was afraid that he would leave. She nodded emotionally, but couldn't say a single word. After a long while, Tang Zheng calmed down a bit, looking at her full of vitality. She was incompatible with the surrounding environment. Chapter 1389. Tang Zheng's heart tightened as he worriedly looked at Li Xiaotian and said in a panicked voice, I'll take you out of here right away. Li Xiaotian looked at him blankly and asked, why? Tang Zheng couldn't wait and said, this is the ghost realm, you have a mortal body, the yin qi will harm your body. Li Xiaotian was shocked and realized the seriousness of the problem. She said in a panic, then let's leave quickly. However, she muttered in her heart, why didn't she feel anything strange? Dizang of Goguryeo looked at the nervous two people and laughed loudly. The two people stared at him blankly, not knowing what to do. You are worrying for nothing, you don't have to worry about this problem. Dizang of Goguryeo said with a smile. The two people looked at each other, they really didn't understand what Dizang of Goguryeo meant. Worrying for nothing, isn't that the case? It is for other people, but it's different for her. Dizang of Goguryeo pointed at Li Xiaotian, Li Xiaotian, I presume you don't feel any pain right now? Li Xiaotian shook her head blankly, she really didn't feel that way. Dizang of Goguryeo seemed to have expected this and said, that's right, because your body won't be harmed by the yin qi at all. Li Xiaotian didn't have a strong reaction, but Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked at Li Xiaotian in bewilderment, as if he wanted to see what was wrong with her body. Unfortunately, he didn't see any clues. But Tang Zheng was very clear about what this meant. He asked in bewilderment, is it true? Her body doesn't have to worry about being harmed by the yin qi. Dizang of Goguryeo nodded, yes, this is the benefit of being resurrected. Benefits? Tang Zheng didn't quite understand. Could it be that all those who are resurrected will have this ability and won't be afraid of the damage caused by yin qi? If that's the case, won't we be able to travel between the two realms smoothly? Tang Zheng was truly shocked by this deduction. One had to know that even the 10 kings of hell were unable to freely travel between the ghost world and the human world. They were afraid of the yang qi in the human world. However, Li Xiaotian was different. She was a person who had returned to the mortal world. She actually possessed the ability to walk and survive in two worlds at the same time. This was too heaven-defying. Dizang of Goguryeo had long seen through Tang Zheng's thoughts and said with a relaxed expression, "Yes, your guess is correct. She does have the ability to freely walk between the two realms. You rely on pure yang energy to resist yin energy, but she is different. She is afraid of yin energy." Tang Zheng was shocked at first, and then he was overjoyed. "That's great." Li Xiaotian also couldn't hide her joy. This was an unexpected surprise. She couldn't describe her feelings anymore. Now in this world, the only one who can do this is her. Dizang of Goguryeo added. She was the only one. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were deeply shocked. They looked at each other and as if they had a tacit understanding, they turned to Dizang of Goguryeo and bowed to thank him. Dizang of Goguryeo, thank you. Dizang of Goguryeo said lightly, you fought for this yourselves. There's no need to thank me. Tang Zheng shook his head. No, without you, I wouldn't have been able to do all this. So I still have to thank you. If you really want to think like this, then think of a way to stop my dark side from rushing out of the 9 underworld mysterious iron once and for all. Dizang of Goguryeo pondered for a while and said. Okay, I'll do my best. Tang Zheng promised. You can freely travel between the two worlds in the future. I hope you can come to the world of spirits and souls more often. Take a look and witness my victory with your own eyes. Dizang of Goguryeo stared at Li Xiaotian with a burning gaze, as if he was still entangled with the previous problem. He seemed to be determined to persuade her. Li Xiaotian glanced at Tang Zheng, and Tang Zheng nodded slightly. This was a life-saving grace, a great kindness. He could still agree to this condition. Moreover, Tang Zheng also wanted to know more about the world of spirits and souls. With Li Xiaotian traveling between the two worlds, his information would be more timely. Li Xiaotian obviously also thought of this point, and nodded directly to agree. Dizang of Goguryeo was very gratified. Although you have been resurrected, you can still comprehend the Ksitigarbha Sutra that I taught you. I hope that one day, you can pry into the great Tao and become a Buddha. Li Xiaotian was stunned for a moment, and asked in bewilderment, I'm now a martial artist, can I still comprehend the Ksitigarbha Sutra? Dizang of Goguryeo nodded indifferently. Of course, there is an essential difference between martial artists and cultivators. However, my Ksitigarbha Sutra is also fundamentally different from other techniques. There is no specific requirement for the cultivator. As long as you have Buddha in your heart, you can comprehend the Ksitigarbha Sutra and obtain the supreme magical power. This is not a fantasy. Li Xiaotian smiled like a flower. She had already experienced the mystery of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Hearing that she could continue to comprehend the mystery of it, she was naturally very happy. Tang Zheng was stunned. He had always thought that martial artists and cultivators were opposite existences. Although Dizang of Goguryeo cultivated the Ksitigarbha Sutra, he had always thought that Dizang of Goguryeo was a cultivator. Then, his technique could be comprehended by anyone. This was too inconceivable. He realized more and more the profoundness of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. I hope you can comprehend the true meaning of the Ksitigarbha Sutra as soon as possible. Dizang of Goguryeo blessed, at that time, you will know my good intentions for all of this. Li Xiaotian did not comment. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva looked at Tang Zheng and said earnestly, you have been in the sea of bitterness, and although you have not turned back, you have gained a lot. You are already in the Mahayana realm, and in the future, the responsibility on your shoulders will be even greater. The stronger a person's strength, the greater the responsibility. This is complementary to each other. I hope you will be careful in the future and not forget your original intention. Yes, I understand. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Dizang of Goguryeo. He understood that these words seemed simple, but in fact, it was a very necessary reminder. Li Xiaotian had been successfully resurrected, which was equivalent to the purpose of their trip. Tang Zheng did not want to stay any longer. After all, they had been in the ghost realm for a long time. He did not know what would happen in the human world. Was his family safe and sound? He could not help but miss his family, lover, and friends. So, he directly said goodbye. Dizang of Goguryeo did not ask him to stay, but repeatedly urged Li Xiaotian to come to the ghost realm more often. Before leaving, Dizang of Goguryeo handed Li Xiaotian a ghost token and said, "The ghost token you used to come to the ghost realm was limited. The place you came to each time was not fixed, and it was very remote. It was too troublesome. This ghost token can help you come here quickly. In the future, I will stay here for a lot of time. You can find me here directly." Li Xiaotian looked at the ghost token in his hand. It was black, and the light of the runes flashed like jumping spirits. Dizang of Goguryeo, you are so biased. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why did Dizang of Goguryeo not give him such a treasure in the past? Every time he came to the ghost realm, he would be in the wilderness, and it would take a lot of effort just to find a city. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at them indifferently, turned a deaf ear, and waved his hand, motioning them to leave. Tang Zheng held Li Xiaotian's hand. Li Xiaotian's mind moved, and the ghost token shone brightly, and a black door appeared in front of the two. They walked in, waved goodbye to Dizang of Goguryeo, and left the ghost realm. The ghost gate disappeared without a trace, and the figures of the two disappeared. In the human world, the capital. The night was dark. A gust of cold wind rolled up, and a ghost gate appeared in an alley. The cold wind blew, making people shudder. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian walked out of the ghost gate hand in hand. Then, Li Xiaotian's mind moved, and the ghost gate closed. The alley returned to calm, and only the two of them were left. They looked at each other and smiled. Li Xiaotian could not help but lean into his arms, worried about her gains and losses. After all, their relationship had not been accepted by other women. Although Li Xiaotian became braver with every setback, what was done could not be undone. How could she face other people? Would they scold her? Li Xiaotian, who was not afraid of anything, was actually afraid of this. If this were to be spread out, people would laugh their heads off. Don't worry, they will accept you. You have sacrificed too much. They will understand your heart, just like me. Tang Zheng encouraged and comforted. Li Xiaotian's heart warmed, and she gradually became determined. In the past, Tang Zheng had never spoken to her in such a gentle tone. Now that she heard it, his voice seemed to have magic. A few simple words, a sentence, were enough to make her heart as calm as still water. She forgot all the dangers, and there was only a firm belief in her heart. I like him. This is a matter of course. No matter how they look at me, I don't care. As long as I have him by my side, that's enough. Li Xiaotian silently encouraged herself. Seeing her emotions gradually calm down, Tang Zheng was relieved. The pressure on him was not small, and how could he not understand the thoughts of other girls? This time, he had to go against their wishes. Moreover, Li Xiaotian was involved. He did not know how they would feel. The two walked side by side, hand in hand, like a couple in love, and walked out of the alley together. At this moment, it was late at night. There was almost no one on the street. Whoosh! A ray of light flew over their heads, attracting their attention. Li Xiaotian raised her head to look at the sky, but did not see anything. She could not help but ask worriedly, "What's going on?" Tang Zheng also frowned. Just now, the whistling wind was biting cold. Obviously, it was not an ordinary person. That person was definitely a cultivator, because the other party was flying in the air. This meant that the other party's cultivation was not low. Otherwise, there was no way to do this. In the middle of the night, there was actually someone flying in the air in the capital. How could Tang Zheng sit and watch? He did not care about going home to report the good news, and directly pulled Li Xiaotian to chase after the other party. The two did not fly in the sky. Instead, they followed the streets and alleys, relying on clues to find the other party's whereabouts. At this moment, there was no trace of people. There was no one at all, so he could easily track the other party's whereabouts. In the sky ahead, there was light flowing, and the light of treasures shot in all directions. It seemed that there was more than one cultivator. The situation was not clear. Chapter 1390. Tang Zheng remained silent. His gaze shifted unpredictably as he locked onto the people in midair. One of them was actually an old acquaintance of Mo Xie. Mo Xie was the leader of the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor, but at this moment, he no longer had that kind of temperament. Instead, he was like a stray dog that was pincered in front and behind, battered and exhausted. Chapter 1391. The shooting sun arrow hovered in the air, flashing with golden light, as if it could shoot at someone again at any time. The arrow just now was fast, ruthless, and accurate, directly destroying a treasure sword. It was very intimidating. Among the martial artists, no one had seen the shooting sun arrow, but they understood that it was a divine weapon. Who is it? Who dares to ruin our good thing? The martial artist roared, furious. Mo Xie bit his lips, his face changing, sometimes white, sometimes red. He knew that the shooting sun arrow had appeared, so its master must be nearby. However, didn't he hear that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were both dead? Who had gotten the shooting sun arrows? Although Mo Xie went to the 100,000 mountains, he still heard the news of Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's death on the way. At that time, he felt particularly relieved. Tang Zheng stopped him time and time again. Li Xiaotian bent her bow and shot arrows, shooting down all the souls of the golden crow, completely cutting off his thoughts. Mo Xie didn't have the slightest good impression of these two people, and he wanted to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Hearing the news of their deaths, Mo Xie was happy and disappointed. It was a pity that he didn't have the chance to kill them personally. All eyes turned to the ground. The shooting sun arrows were shot from the ground, so the attacker was naturally on the ground. Tang Zheng had already saved Li Xiaotian, so he was naturally not afraid of exposing the news that he was not dead. He pulled Li Xiaotian and flew up lightly. Swish! All eyes were focused on the two of them. The martial artist didn't know them and scolded in a stern voice, "Who are you? How dare you ruin our good thing? Don't you want to live?" Tang Zheng sneered and didn't comment. Seeing this, the martial artist felt that his dignity was seriously challenged, and he was even more furious. Like a volcanic eruption, he shouted, "You two are cultivators, not afraid of death. How dare you show up in front of us?" Martial artists were not strangers to cultivators and knew a little about cultivators. Therefore, when they saw the two of them fly up into the air, they naturally thought of them as part of the cultivators' camp. Tang Zheng didn't pay any attention to the martial artist. Instead, he looked at Mo Xie. Obviously, Mo Xie's eyes were more unique. Ever since Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian appeared, his eyes were wide open, as if he had seen a ghost. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the two of them were still alive. Furthermore, they were still alive and well. Now that they had met under such circumstances, his prestige would definitely be swept to the ground. After all, that wretched appearance just now was really too damaging to his prestige. "You guys actually didn't die." Mo Xie extended a trembling finger and pointed at the two of them from afar as she said in shock. Tang Zheng glanced at him and said, "Mo Xie, you haven't died yet, so how could I die so quickly?" "Tang Zheng, didn't the rumors say that you were all dead?" Mo Xie asked in disbelief. "You also know that it's just a rumor. After all, rumors are the most untrustworthy in this world." Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile. Untrustworthy, untrustworthy. These three words echoed in Mo Xie's mind. Looking at Tang Zheng's smile that was not a smile, his heart turned cold. He already understood that this was definitely not that simple. Tang Zheng deliberately let this rumor fester, and many people believed it to be true. There must be some purpose behind this. However, he couldn't guess what Tang Zheng was doing. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he stared at Tang Zheng. He had already seen through the clues. His cultivation has increased. He actually couldn't see through Tang Zheng's cultivation. One had to know that he was in the Mahayana realm, and Tang Zheng used to be in the 9th stage of the demigod realm. Since he couldn't see through him, the other must have crossed that threshold. You're also in the Mahayana realm? Mo Xia asked in shock. Tang Jing smiled and didn't answer, but it was equivalent to a tacit agreement. Mo Xia's face turned deathly pale as he immediately realized that his situation was even worse. There were martial artists in front of him and behind him was Tang Jing. He was attacked from the front and back and was pincered from the front and back. This was a dead end. Most importantly, Tang Jing had endured for so long because he wanted to break through. Now that he had returned with a strong momentum, he had a big plan. Of course, Mo Xia didn't know that Tang Jing was trying to buy time for Li Xiaotian to be resurrected, so he played along and made the world think that he was dead. Tang Jing didn't explain further. He glanced at Mo Xia's expression and said, Mo Xia, you just said that you went to the 100,000 mountains. Why did you go there? Apart from Buzhou Mountain, there was no other valuable thing in the 100,000 mountains, so he was very puzzled as to why Mo Xia went there. Mo Xia's heart tightened. He snorted and said, why should I tell you? Tang Jing shook his head and said, Mo Xia, you still don't understand the current situation. If I didn't take action, do you think you could escape from these warriors unscathed? Mo Xia's face turned red. He raised his head and said stubbornly, no matter what, I don't need your pity. I won't pity you. Everything you've done to me, even if I kill you, it won't be enough to relieve the hatred in my heart. Why would I pity you? Tang Jing said coldly. Mo Xia had already expected this and wasn't surprised. He laughed loudly, that's right. You can't wait to kill me, but am I not the same? You've ruined my plans time and time again, causing the Yellow Emperor to have no hope of reviving. You are the enemy of my entire Yellow Emperor tribe. If you hadn't summoned 9 golden crows and almost destroyed the world, why would I have stopped you? You brought all of this upon yourself. You don't care about the life and death of others, so how could you blame me for ruining your plans? Tang Jing snorted disdainfully, not agreeing with Mo Xia's words. Mo Xia was speechless. Of course he knew the price of everything he had done. If he didn't have a choice, he definitely wouldn't have done this. But in order to revive the Yellow Emperor, in order to stop Qi Yu's plan, he had no choice but to take the risk. Mo Xia was shocked by Tang Jing's few words and was almost speechless. The other martial artists understood and knew Tang Jing's identity. They looked at him in shock, bewildered. Their expressions changed as they asked, "You're Tang Jing?" Tang Jing slightly turned his head and stared at the martial artists. He sneered, "It seems that you've also heard of my name. Then who can tell me who you are? How did your cultivations suddenly increase by leaps and bounds? How did you become so strange? You want us to speak? Dream on." The martial artists weren't afraid and instead tried to fight back. "You and Mo Xia are both cultivators, so you are the natural enemies of us martial artists. This is the blessing of the heavens for the two of you to appear in front of us together. Then don't blame us for being impolite." Tang Jing was stunned for a moment before he began to laugh loudly. This group of martial artists were really arrogant. They actually treated him as nothing and wanted to get rid of him and Mo Xia together. "You don't have much ability, but your tone isn't small." Li Xiaotian agreed. In the ghost realm, even in such a dangerous situation, Tang Jing was still able to escape. Although this group of martial artists was powerful, she felt that it was laughable to look down on Tang Jing like this. He didn't know whose subordinate the other party was, but he was actually so arrogant and conceited. The martial artist obviously did not think that he was arrogant, but was full of confidence as he said, "Kill them and report back." The others nodded in agreement. A fierce battle was unavoidable. Tang Jing nodded towards Li Xiaotian and warned, "Be careful later." Li Xiaotian smiled, patted the heaven-shocking bow in his hands, and said, "I have this, they can't hurt me." Whiz! Without saying a word, Tang Jing rushed towards the martial artists. The martial artists roared and rushed towards Tang Jing with killing intent, as if they were determined to win. On the contrary, Mo Xia relaxed. No one was targeting him anymore. He wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but his curiosity made him stop in his tracks. Tang Zheng had come back from the dead, and would definitely become his formidable opponent. He wanted to find out how strong Tang Zheng had become. Whoosh whoosh. A martial artist raised the large blade in his hand and slashed down. The blade light was dazzling, and the invisible force attacked Tang Zheng's face first. However, a black hole appeared in front of Tang Zheng, and the sharp qi and the flashing treasure were all sucked into the black hole, disappearing without a trace. When the martial artists saw this, they were all shocked. It was obvious that they had never seen such a divine ability before. Tang Zheng pointed his finger at a martial artist, and the other party immediately discovered that he was unable to move, as he was firmly bound by the suction force of the black hole. He struggled non-stop, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't break free from this terrifying power at all. Whiz! This martial artist had no choice but to fly directly towards the black hole. He was quickly swallowed by the black hole and disappeared. Tang Zheng's heart stirred, and a portion of his mind was immersed in the heavenly realm. When the martial artist was sucked into the black hole, he did not appear in the heavenly realm, but there was an additional ball of energy in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng was shocked and could not help but feel a lingering fear. Back then, he had used the soul-devouring technique of the sky-swallowing technique to suck the souls of Dizang of Goguryeo and Li Xiaotian into the black hole. If he really did that, he was afraid that he would never see Li Xiaotian again. This martial artist was an example. His physical body did not appear in the heavenly realm, and even his soul did not appear in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng immediately remembered those people who had been sucked into the black hole, but they were not found in the heavenly realm in the end. That could only mean one thing. These people who had been sucked into the black hole had been dissolved into the most primitive energy by the black hole. Humans were made up of a certain amount of energy, and the black hole happened to restore this energy, causing it to return to its original state and turn into energy for Tang Zheng to use. Moreover, this energy also contained a certain amount of vitality, which was the vitality that he used to create plants in the past. I understand. So the vitality in the heavenly realm must be left behind by the people who were sucked into the heavenly realm in the past. This matter was really shocking. Even Tang Zheng had never thought that it would be like this. However, he immediately calmed down. After all, he had figured out the origin of the vitality in the heavenly realm. If he wanted the heavenly realm to have more vitality in the future, he would have a way. However, this move could not be used carelessly unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, these vitality were all fresh lives. The martial artists wanted nothing more than to kill him, so he naturally would not pity these people. Although he was kind-hearted, he would not be so soft-hearted. He turned his gaze and locked onto this group of martial artists as if he saw countless vitality. Chapter 1392. Instantly, Tang Zheng made up his mind. No matter what, he absolutely could not allow the tiger to return to the mountain. Let this group of people leave and spread the news. Tang Zheng would try his best to buy as much time as possible to avoid attracting Ji Wuxiang's attention prematurely. Ji Wuxiang was an ambitious person. Once he had this kind of strength, he would definitely not be willing to be left out. From the fact that he sent people to ambush Mo Xia, it could be seen. His spearhead would not only target Mo Xia, but also Qiyu. This was definitely the opponent he wanted to defeat the most. After all, Qiyu's strength was unprecedented. Ji Wuxiang would definitely not sit idly by and do nothing. Instead, he would think of ways to deal with Qiyu. This was precisely in line with Tang Zheng's goal. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. No matter who won or lost between Ji Wuxiang and Qiyu, once the outcome of this battle was decided, these two people could not be the winner. Only Tang Zheng, who would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, could be the winner. The only thing he needed to do was to suppress the news that he was not dead and let the outside world continue to think that he was dead. To do this was not difficult. The most crucial part was to get rid of these martial artists in front of him. His gaze lingered in a circle, and the killing intent in his eyes gradually grew stronger. The martial artists clearly sensed this, but they were not afraid. Instead, they volunteered to take a few steps forward, with the intent to fight to the death. Mo Xie's eyes darted around. He finally understood that Tang Zheng's actions were not seeking death or seeking survival in the cracks. After all, their tenacious struggle was worthy of respect. Kill! The martial artists launched a fierce attack again, their killing intent filling the sky. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and a black hole appeared in front of him. Swish, swish, swish. Several martial artists were immediately sucked in without even a scream. The others' expressions did not change. They were indifferent. Come here. Tang Zheng roared. The palm of his hand also produced a suction force. The martial artists did not have time to resist and were sucked into his palm. The martial artist's expression did not change as he shouted, "Why did you catch me? If you don't want to speak, then I will personally pry open your mouths." Tang Zheng's killing intent soared as he coldly said. The martial artist's heart trembled, and he put on a strong front and said, "I'm not afraid of your petty tricks." Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "You're not afraid, are you? We'll see in a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of black light appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. Ah! A miserable shriek resounded through the sky as black light flickered. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and concentrated on dealing with the martial artist. The hero in his hands had completely surrendered. The information in his brain had been taken away by Tang Zheng using the soul-searching technique, and he himself had become a fool. Chapter 1393. Not only was there a lot of information in Tang Zheng's brain, but the star power in the martial artist's meridians was also transmitted into his body through the palm of his hand. The soul-searching technique scoured the martial artist's brain for information, while the sky-swallowing technique absorbed the martial artist's power. This group of martial artists was completely different from other martial artists. Ordinary martial artists had inner strength in their bodies, but this group of martial artists had the original star power in their bodies, which had not been transformed into inner strength at all. This was equivalent to a new cultivation method, which opened Tang Zheng's eyes. While he was shocked, he also felt like he had obtained a treasure. He lacked the star power the most. Since that was the case, he naturally could not waste it. Thus, he looked at the other martial artists with a thought-provoking gaze, like a hungry beast seeing a sumptuous meal. At the same time, the information he searched made his heart sink. This group of martial artists was indeed Ji Wuxiang's men. Ji Wuxiang had already broken through the threshold set by the Emperor of Heaven and soared into the sky. What realm had Ji Wuxiang's cultivation reached? They had no way to tell. However, one thing was certain. Ji Wuxiang could transform martial artists and use the star power to increase their cultivation in a short period of time. In addition, the star power's attribute was higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so even cultivators could not see through a martial artist's cultivation. This group of martial artists was originally the best of the best. After being transformed by Ji Wuxiang, their strength had increased to another level. They had actually soared to the martial king realm, and one of them had even reached the martial emperor realm. What kind of concept was this? In the past, martial artists who had reached the Grandmaster realm were very rare. They were considered true experts. But now, the Grandmaster realm was not even enough to be looked at. They could only be considered small fries. It was no wonder that this group of martial artists was so arrogant. If they suddenly became so powerful, no matter who it was, they would become arrogant. Tang Zheng felt the pressure suddenly increase. The martial artists had become so powerful. It was another rising force that was definitely not inferior to Qiyu. This was a situation that no one had expected. Ji Wuxiang is really a genius. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. All of this was the result of Ji Wuxiang's efforts. If it had been anyone else, even if they had the right time, they definitely wouldn't have been able to achieve this. Although they were enemies, Tang Zheng couldn't help but respect them. Of course, he was not afraid. Ji Wuxiang is definitely at the martial emperor realm. This means that he is no weaker than a Mahayana realm cultivator. I wonder how Qi Yu will feel after hearing this news. Qi Yu was ambitious and wholeheartedly wanted to unify the world. If he knew that there was a strong enemy like Ji Wuxiang, he would definitely not sit still and wait for death. His heart skipped a beat, and he was even more certain that he couldn't make it public. While everyone thought that he was dead, he would let them fight to the death. In addition, this group of martial artists could actually activate the heavenly chess to a certain extent. Although it was only a portion of the heavenly chess power, its power was already very impressive. The heavenly chess power was invisible. In fact, even the person being attacked couldn't sense it. Mo Xia was like this. He only felt that his strength seemed to be reduced, which was why he was in such a sorry state. Mo Xia thought that it was because of him, but in fact, he was unknowingly attacked by the heavenly chess. This was especially frightening. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked at the sky and the surroundings. At first, even he didn't notice this. After all, he didn't think in this direction. However, at this moment, he calmed down and really felt the heavenly chess power. This power had already become very faint, faintly discernible. If he didn't know the various mysteries of the heavenly chess, he wouldn't be able to sense it at all. For example, even if Mo Xia told him, he wouldn't be able to sense the heavenly chess power. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. He looked at Mo Xia with a bit of pity in his eyes. The great expert of the Yellow Emperor tribe actually ended up in such a sorry state after being besieged by a group of unknown martial artists. Mo Xia's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little uncomfortable under Tang Zheng's gaze. He was on guard, thinking that Tang Zheng was going to do him harm. He was very clear about the threat and impact his actions had on Tang Zheng. He didn't think that Tang Zheng would let him go. However, the shock in Mo Xia's heart was also indescribable. He was in such a sorry state after being chased by this group of martial artists. However, in front of Tang Zheng, this group of martial artists didn't cause any waves. Especially the power displayed by the black hole. It terrified Mo Xia. He knew that this was the sky-devouring skill. Obviously, the sky-devouring skill's power had increased again. Tang Zheng's cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds. He wasn't inferior to him. Mo Xia already had the thought of leaving. He would act according to the situation and leave before Tang Zheng finished off this group of martial artists. Otherwise, what awaited him definitely wouldn't be good. Tang Zheng retracted his gaze. He didn't care about Mo Xia's thoughts. Instead, he focused his attention on the martial artists. The martial artists were frightened by his stare. They roared angrily and formed seals with their hands. The power of stars gushed out from their bodies and affected the celestial chess. The power of the celestial chess erupted, attacking Tang Zheng one after another. This attack was formless and invisible, making it hard to guard against. However, Tang Zheng wasn't an ordinary person. With a thought, he quietly took a step forward and dodged the celestial chess attack. Then, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, he took light and quick steps. Each time, he would take a step before Tian Qi could attack, causing all of Tian Qi's attacks to miss. The martial artists were shocked. Their eyes widened, staring at him as if they had seen a ghost. How did you do it? Li Xiaotian and Mo Xia's hearts shook. They had a strange feeling. What did the martial artists mean by that? Mo Xia was experienced and knowledgeable after all. Staring at Tang Zheng's feet, he came up with an idea. Could it be that he's avoiding something? But why don't I feel anything strange? He didn't understand the celestial chess, so of course he wouldn't feel anything. Immediately, he felt even more confused. He couldn't see through it at all. This was a huge blow to him. Tang Zheng looked at the martial artists with a smile and said, "You are Ji Wuxiang's people. Didn't he tell you that he's not the only one who understands the mysteries of the celestial chess? You're a cultivator, how could you understand the mysteries of the celestial chess?" The other party still couldn't believe it. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. He thought to himself that if Ji Wuxiang hadn't tricked him, this celestial chess might not have succeeded so quickly. He also played a part in this. Now that he thought about it, he was filled with regret. However, he didn't say this out loud. Seeing that Tang Zheng did not say anything, the martial artist began to feel apprehensive. The celestial chess was their greatest reliance, their magic weapon for victory. It seemed that they had been too blindly optimistic. The power of the celestial chess couldn't threaten Tang Zheng, so how could they be a match for Tang Zheng with their little cultivation? They saw that Tang Zheng was like a wisp of green smoke, rushing into the group of martial artists with a whoosh, as if no one was there to catch him. They all roared angrily, but it was useless. They only saw a figure pass by, and a black light flashed. Then, the star power in their bodies flowed out like a flood, leaving their bodies. Tang Zheng didn't have any intention of letting the tiger go back to the mountain. After the sky-devouring technique absorbed their star power, the black hole flashed, and this group of people disappeared into the black hole, turning into wisps of vitality and appearing in the heaven realm. Mo Xia wanted to wait for an opportunity to escape, but before he could even take that step, he didn't expect Tang Zheng to eliminate the enemy in a flash of lightning. He was immediately stunned on the spot, his face stiff, and he didn't know what to do. Li Xiaotian looked at Tang Zheng in high spirits. This was the man of her dreams. That vigorous and decisive appearance was so handsome, enough to charm thousands of girls and make them burst with joy. She couldn't bear to look away, as if it would be her loss if she didn't look. However, Mo Xia didn't want to look at Tang Zheng at all. He wanted nothing more than for him to ignore him, treat him like air, and ignore him. However, Tang Zheng slowly turned his head and locked his gaze on him. Mo Xia's heart was beating like a drum, but he didn't want to show his fear on the surface. He said, "Tang Zheng, you didn't die, and your power has increased greatly." Tang Zheng sneered. "This is all thanks to you. Do you still want me to thank you?" Mo Xia didn't completely understand the meaning of his words. He waved his hand and said, "I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." "Wait." Tang Zheng moved his feet and blocked his path. "You want to leave just like that? We still haven't settled the debt between us." Mo Xia could see the killing intent in Tang Zheng's eyes. His heart trembled as he said, "Since you want to settle the debt, then I'll settle it with you. You've obstructed my Yellow Emperor tribe's operations time and time again, and you keep saying that you're not in cahoots with Qiyu. Do you think I'll believe you?" Mo Xia had escaped too quickly at the peak of Sky Mountain, so he didn't see what Qiyu did to Tang Zheng. Although Tang Zheng and Qiyu were always competing, Mo Xia still had a trace of doubt in his heart. He believed that Tang Zheng and Qiyu were inextricably linked. "Whether you believe me or not, that's your own business. The problem between me and Qiyu has nothing to do with you. I just want to settle the debt between us." Tang Zheng didn't comment and said coldly. Mo Xia took a step forward and said in an imposing manner, "What do you want? What are you going to do in the 10,000 mountains?" Tang Zheng directly asked. This was what he had heard from Mo Xia just now. A question mark appeared in his heart. At this critical moment, Mo Xia definitely wasn't going to the 10,000 mountains to relax, but to have some other secret or unspeakable goal. He naturally wanted to get to the bottom of this. Mo Xia's expression changed slightly as he stared straight at Tang Zheng and said, "Why do you care what I'm going to do?" Tang Zheng wrinkled his eyebrows, "If you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for being merciless." While speaking, the black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm again. It grew bigger and bigger, as if it was about to swallow Mo Xia. Mo Xia suddenly froze, his heart trembling. He had already seen the power of the swallowing heaven technique, especially when it had swallowed 9 golden crow souls. It was enough to see how terrifying it was. Mo Xia didn't have the confidence to win. He stared fixedly at Tang Zheng for a few seconds. Seeing that he was about to lose his patience, he hurriedly said, "Humph, do you think I'm afraid of you? I'll openly go to the 10,000 mountains and tell you where it is." He spoke in a dignified manner, but in reality, he was really afraid of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood this point, but didn't point it out. He quietly waited for him to continue. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've become stronger. Let me tell you, there are more experts in this world than you can imagine. Mo Xia said in a low voice. Oh, then I'd like to hear what other experts there are. Tang Zheng said with interest. Chapter 1394. Tang Zheng's expression remained the same. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Percent 22 22 Moi's eyes widened in suspicion. After a while, he said, Percent 22 Why aren't you surprised at all when you hear about the inner demons? 22 Tang Zheng looked at him with a half-smile and asked, Percent 22 Why should I be surprised? 22 Why should I be surprised? Chapter 1395. You want to see Tian Chanzi? Tang Zheng looked at the stubborn Mo Xia in shock, unable to understand. Mo Xia's expression was firm as he nodded, Yes, I want to see him. The sooner the better. Why? Tang Zheng asked with a frown. When you see him, everything will naturally come to light. Mo Xia purposely kept them in suspense. Tang Zheng didn't buy it. He simply crossed his arms and said indifferently, If you don't say it, then don't even think about seeing Tian Chanzi. You know very well the relationship between him and me. If I say you can't see him, then you absolutely can't see him. Tang Zheng's unyielding attitude made Mo Xia suddenly startled. His expression froze as he stammered and didn't know what to do. Mo Xia stared straight at Tang Zheng. His eyes wanted to spit fire, but he also felt helpless. Finally, he sighed helplessly and said, Okay, then I'll tell you. Actually, this is just a guess of mine. What guess? Master's remnant soul hasn't disappeared. It's just hidden in Tian Chanzi's body. Mo Xia's tone was mixed with excitement. He had originally despaired, but after hearing about the great battle in the deep canyon, his heart immediately lit up with the light of hope. This time it was Tang Zheng and Li Xiaoyan's turn to be shocked. They looked at each other, unable to describe their feelings with words. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul could actually still be in Tian Chanzi's body? If it wasn't for Mo Xia's reaction that didn't seem to be acting, Tang Zheng would probably scoff and think it was nonsense. But now he definitely didn't think it was nonsense. Mo Xia was so excited, so it was most likely true. Mo Xia looked straight at the two of them, very understanding of their feelings, and said, Now you should be able to understand my feelings. Actually, Mo Xia didn't want to tell anyone about this at all to avoid new problems, especially since Tang Zheng had repeatedly stopped him from reviving the Yellow Emperor. However, this matter involved Tian Chanzi, and he had no way of bypassing Tang Zheng. Therefore, he had no choice but to tell the truth. If Tang Zheng continued to obstruct him, there was nothing he could do. However, he would definitely fight back and seize this one and only opportunity. At that time, the two of them would definitely fight to the death. He stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes, waiting for his answer and reaction. Their eyes met. Tang Zheng could truly understand Mo Xia's feelings. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, I understand. However, even though Tian Chanzi and I have been together almost all the time, I have never found any signs of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in his body. Mo Xia faintly smiled and said, If Master was so easily discovered, then he wouldn't be Master. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and said, All right, I'll wait and see. Mo Xia's eyes lit up as he impatiently asked, You mean you agree? Tang Zheng calmly asked back, What reason do I have to refuse? However, I have a question. If you want to use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul to revive him, won't that cause a calamity in the human world? Mo Xia shook his head like a rattledrum and said, How could that be? With Master's remnant soul, why would I need to sacrifice so many innocent lives for something so far away? Tang Zheng's eyebrows twitched as he coldly snorted and said, You also know that those are innocent lives. However, in your previous actions, have you ever cared about their lives? Mo Xie's face alternated between red and white as he guiltily explained, that was because I was in a hurry to revive Master. Only Master can lead this world to a brighter and more glorious future. A bunch of nonsense. Tang Zheng snorted disdainfully, this world revolves without anyone. As long as I'm here, I will never agree to sacrifice countless lives to revive one person. These words were resolute and decisive, leaving no room for discussion. Mo Xie understood Tang Zheng's thoughts even more and looked at him with a burning gaze. For a moment, his heart actually wavered a little. Back then, Master was also this determined when he was young. That was why he was able to stand out from countless other tribes and establish great achievements. However, he immediately shook his head and rejected this absurd idea. He thought to himself, how could Tang Zheng be compared to Master? Tang Zheng let out a breath of relief. As long as Mo Xie did not wholeheartedly sacrifice innocent lives to revive the Yellow Emperor, then he would be much more at ease. As for whether or not to stop Mo Xie from reviving the Yellow Emperor, Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment as he could not find an answer for now. Tang Zheng chose to agree because he also wanted to know whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in Tian Chanzi's body. He had seen the power of this remnant soul. This was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so of course he could not ignore it. Only Mo Xie could find out whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in existence. Both sides reached an agreement, and Tang Zheng brought Mo Xie home. Mo Xie looked at Tang Zheng from time to time and asked about the final situation of the battle at the peak of Sky Mountain. Tang Zheng did not mention that Li Shaotian did not hesitate to sacrifice his life for him. Not long after, the three of them arrived at a place not far from the villa. The formation had already been activated, blocking their path. Tang Zheng was familiar with the place. He activated the formation and walked in with Mo Xie. Mo Xie looked around and understood, you've made your home impregnable. It's no wonder that even though news of your death has spread, this place hasn't suffered too many attacks. You've made so many enemies. This result isn't easy to achieve. Tang Zheng also looked around, deliberately avoiding the patrolling witch tribe warriors, and quietly walked to the villa in the middle. Halfway there, he glanced at Mo Xie and said indifferently, if you want to have any ideas about this place, you have to first see how many lives you have. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Tang Zheng's words were not exaggerated. Not only did the house have a formation as the first defense system, but there was also the Empyrean Fairy, an expert, guarding it. It was not a place that ordinary people could invade. The villa area was very quiet. Obviously, during the time he was away, it was quite peaceful here. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. The three of them silently appeared outside Tian Chanzi's window. Who is it? A low shout came from inside the house, and a sharp aura shot out through the window. Tian Chanzi had discovered their whereabouts. Tang Zheng flew in through the window, and a sharp attack came unexpectedly. He casually reached out and dissolved the attack, saying, Tian Chanzi, it's me. His voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder, shocking Tian Chanzi and stopping his follow-up attacks. Ding! The lights were on, and there were three more people in the room. Tian Chanzi's pupils shrank, and he first found Tang Zheng. He could not hide his surprise and said, you're back. Although it was not the first time Tang Zheng went to the ghost realm, Tian Chanzi was still very worried. After all, this time was different from before. He was going to bring Li Shaotian back to life. Tian Chanzi knew that he could never do it. In this world, only Tang Zheng dared to do so. But now Tang Zheng was standing in front of him alive, and Li Shaotian was standing beside him, which meant that it was a success. Tian Chanzi really wanted to cheer a few times and give Tang Zheng a big hug, but his eyes moved slightly, and his smile immediately froze. It was as if his face suddenly changed. His smile disappeared, and with a schwa, he became incomparably gloomy. He stared straight at Mo Xie, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His entire body shivered, and he was ready to attack. He cautiously said, it's you. You actually dare to come here. Tian Chanzi had fought with Mo Xie several times, and his impression of this face was too deep. He did not expect to see this face in his room. How could he not be surprised? In a flash, many thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were controlled by Mo Xie, and were forced to bring him here? Tian Chanzi was ready to fight at any time, and he stared at Mo Xie like a tiger watching its prey. Mo Xie's expression was excited, as if he had seen a treasure, and he stared at Tian Chanzi, which made Tian Chanzi's heart tremble. "What are you looking at me for?" Tian Chanzi asked, his heart palpitating. Mo Xie stretched out his hand, wanting to grab Tian Chanzi and carefully examine him. Tian Chanzi suddenly stepped back, and with a whoosh, a sword light flashed, and the cold light of the long sword was in front of him, ready to fight. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily, and said, "Tian Chanzi, don't have such a big reaction." Tian Chanzi looked at him and said, "Boy, don't worry, I'm here, and I won't let him do whatever he wants. I will definitely save you." "Save me?" Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment, and pointed at his nose. His eyes rolled, and he suddenly realized that Tian Chanzi had misunderstood. "Tian Chanzi, you don't need to save me, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm not being threatened by him." Tang Zheng's explanation didn't dispel Tian Chanzi's doubts, and he stared hatefully at Mo Xie, saying, "Did you cast some kind of evil spell on Tang Zheng, so that's why he said those words to numb me?" Seeing that his misunderstanding was getting deeper and deeper, Tang Zheng hurriedly walked over and grabbed his arm. Mo Xie didn't move. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng's hand in shock, and then looked at the familiar face in front of him, confirming that it was Tang Zheng, and not someone else in disguise. "Boy, what the hell are you doing?" Tian Chanzi asked, bewildered. "I'm not doing anything, someone wants to see you, and I just brought him here," Tang Zheng said, pointing at Mo Xie. "He wants to see me." Tian Chanzi doubtfully confirmed that Tang Zheng wasn't being threatened, but after hearing Tang Zheng's words, he felt that it was inconceivable. "Yes, he wants to see you," Tang Zheng repeated. "What's there to see him for?" "He's our enemy, and you brought him here, aren't you afraid of danger?" Tian Chanzi asked in a bad mood. He had a deep understanding of Mo Xie's power, which was why he was so afraid of Mo Xie. Mo Xie didn't get angry, and only said awkwardly, "It's true that I want to see you, but I have something very important to confirm with you." "I have nothing to talk about with you," Tian Chanzi said bluntly, and secretly winked at Tang Zheng, as if to say that they should solve this problem together. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, and said, "Tian Chanzi, don't worry, he really has something to talk to you about."